There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 47. This is Jim Huntsman, the host of the Western Huntsman podcast, and I am coming at you from the Broken Time studio in Hayden, Idaho. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'd like to give a warm, heartfelt welcome to some of you new listeners out there. Welcome to the Western Huntsman podcast. Thanks for joining us. We're glad you're here. This is the show where we all kind of come together and unite as hunters and build a foundation of passion and strength and protection for our hunting heritage and our hunting rights and everything that we fight for, whether it's public land or our wildlife itself or just the hunting rights in general that have just seemed to be hunting and trapping. You know, it's just been under fire lately. And so here at this show, our goal is to just light a fire in all of us and make sure that we're together no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're a bow hunter or a rifle hunter. For me personally, I do all of it. Other than, I have to admit, I haven't been on a muzzleloader hunt since 1999. And so maybe I might have to change that sometime soon. But either way, welcome. Thanks you guys for being here. If you like it, please share the show. We really appreciate that coming up. So quick announcement for you guys. If you're following us on social media, whether you're on Instagram or Facebook or both or whatever, we've got a kind of a coloring contest going on, if I could spit that out. Coloring contest going on for ages, I believe I put ages 3 to 6. And what I did is I posted a picture of this huge buck. And it's just a coloring contest for fun to, trying to get youth involved as much as possible, because we did have a youth essay contest last summer, and that was for some older kids. And so we're like, you know what, let's do something for the younger kids, get their juices flowing. So if you have a kid and you are following us on either Instagram or Facebook, go to the page and you'll see the post with the picture. And what you'll need to do is just kind of save that to your phone or laptop or whatever and print it off. For me, I could just take the picture and I hit print on my phone. Wonderful technology, apparently. It goes right to our printer and prints it right out. So we've got a few entries, but have the kiddos color those up and send them in to jim@thewesternhuntsman.com. We'll get them entered. The winner is going to win a youth t-shirt from the Western Huntsman, and we'll get that sent out. They are due by April 12th, which is coming up. That's about a week from today. So make sure you guys are doing that, and I'll try to get the winner announced next week when I'm back. So that should be a good time. Speaking of which, this episode is brought to you by Hoffman Boots. I'm really, really excited to talk about Hoffman Boots because Hoffman Boots have been my go-to hunting boot for a long time. For me, I prefer the 8-inch Explorers, non-insulated, and that is going to be one of my favorite. Well, it's a personal choice. I mean, for me, I like the 8-inch, but a lot of people like the 6-inch. But I feel like you get a little bit better ankle support with the 8-inch. Totally up to you, whatever you guys want. What I really like about the Hoffman boots is there's not like this huge break-in period for them. The first time, the set I have now, I have a set of those 8-inch Hoffman Explorers, and the first time I took them out was on an elk hunt with the owner, Jim Hoffman, and we went probably 4 miles in some steep, nasty, rugged country, up and down, bugling for bulls. And when I got back to the truck, my feet didn't have a single blister. There was no redness. They were not sore. There's like hardly a break-in period on these boots. Now, they feel better after you've been hiking in them for a week than they do the first day, but it's not like other boots where, your feet are killing you because you haven't broken them in properly. The other thing that I really like about the Hoffmans is they are every bit as good, if not better, than some of those real high-end name brands that you hear out there, but the price point is a little bit better, and to make it even juicier for you, if you type in Huntsman 10, Huntsman 10 at checkout, it will save you 10%. and that is a hell of a deal, my friends. So check out Hoffman Boots. We appreciate you guys supporting our sponsors. You know what? Speaking of sponsors, I just got an order. I put in an order for these black bat turkey calls from Phelps. Let's see. I got it right here. I haven't put a turkey call in my mouth since last season. I know that's a big no-no, but that's what I've done, and I have no excuse for it. But let's try this thing. So let me know what you guys think of this. Here we go. We're going to put on a black bat from Phelps. Heck yeah, man. I think that's going to work. Those toms are in trouble. I feel like you don't need to be as good at turkey calls as you are at elk calls. Not that you have to be like competition level for either, but I was like terrible at turkey calling, and I was still calling in toms. But this thing is, we're going to run with that. That's pretty cool. Excited about that. That weird taste you get in your mouth when you put a brand new reed in your mouth. I got that going on right now. If you guys listened to last week's episode, you are aware that I have been up against this crazy deadline for outside of podcasts and hunting and all that kind of stuff. We're getting really close to being done here, and so what I did for this week is instead of recording an episode with somebody, I'm just basically taking an episode from Western Contours that I was on, I don't know, like a month ago, and it was a great episode. So Guy over at Western Contours did this thing where he had like a panel discussion, and the idea was talking about time behind the string and getting ready for season, how different people get ready for season and gear up and get in shape and get their gear all lined out. But the real interesting part of this discussion, and again, if you listened last week, this might be a little redundant, but either way, we talk about the technical aspect and the difference between a lot of hunters like Kyle and Garrett. They're super, super technical with their gear, like with their bows. They know the FOC and this and that, all these crazy things that just are mind-boggling to me that I don't really pay attention to. I'm a lot less technical, and the conversation is kind of centered around, there's really no right or wrong way to go about that. You could be very untechnical and be a very successful hunter, and vice versa. And so there's no right or wrong way is the point. And it's kind of cool investigating the dichotomy between that and how everybody preps for season and gears up. So in this episode on Western Contours with Guy, we have Kyle Davidson. He's from DCA Custom Arrows. He makes custom arrows and tests them in wind tunnels and all sorts of crazy stuff. He talks about it. It's really neat. Garrett Weaver from On Point with Garrett Weaver podcast. That's a great show. Check it out. Joe Gillia with Elk Bros. You guys know how I feel about my buddy Joe. We're going to get him back on the show here soon. I got an idea for him, so hopefully he's listening. So his wheels start turning. We'll leave him hanging. We also have Michael Batiste with the Elk Calling Academy on, and Chad Riker from Backcountry Rookies. That's a great podcast too. If you guys haven't checked out Backcountry Rookies, that's always good. They've always got really good content on there. So that's what this episode is. Again, I'm just kind of up against it, and I think that you guys will get a lot out of this episode. I'd be curious to know if you're more of a technical hunter when it comes to your gear, or if you're a little less technical like I am. I'm just a total monkey, and I just kind of use what's worked for a long time, and it just keeps plugging along. We'll see how it goes. With that said, guys, and without further ado, I appreciate you guys tuning in, checking it out. Thank you all for who has written the reviews on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts. That's awesome. Those reviews are really coming along, so I appreciate that. Keep sharing the episodes, keep sharing the show, and keep sharing your love and passion for hunting. Guys, with that, let's get into it.
Welcome to Western Contours Podcast, sharing experiences, providing insight, and looking for solutions to become better hunters. We talk gear, on and off season preparation, tips and tactics, conservation, and finding inspiration in the outdoors as sportsmen and women. Thank you for joining us as we share our love for all things Western hunting.
Yeah, that was I was signed up for that.
I realized that, but you got up and you had pants on, so I figured that you weren't really game.
Is that optional? Pants are optional?
They're definitely optional as long as you're sitting.
All right, fair enough. I may surprise you halfway through.
You're petite.
Yeah, Batiste just got on, so we're waiting on Huntsman.
Nice.
Oh,
I'm hoping that he comes with a song, right? Because the guy's been singing on his podcast more than once or twice. All right, here's Kyle Davidson.
What the world needs now.
You know Huntsman's
Is an old wop singing.
Mike, man. I didn't get the memo, Mike.
What's that, Joe?
So Batiste brought his elk decoy with him.
This is no. This is the hearing enhancer 5000.
Oh man, this is classic.
I mean, okay, Joe, you can attribute to this. You're out there on the hillside, and then all of a sudden you think you start to hear a bugle. And then it's like, oh my God, I heard a bugle.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, you've been working that for how long now, man?
I got this about a month ago because I'm going to take this to camp. The hunting partners don't even know I have it, and I'm breaking it out the first night around the campfire. And I'm just
my God.
start hearing all kinds of bugles.
That is awesome, dude.
All right, so let's see. Huntsman's joining. We got I don't even know.
He's going to show up with his blonde wig.
So Jim, your video is off. You don't have audio.
That's because he was afraid Joe and I were going to be naked from the waist down.
We figured you guys were starting late, so he took Joe's place.
I delivered about a half hour ago, but you guys are late.
You guys hear me?
Gotcha.
Got me? Okay.
All right, so I'll go through some quick introductions. I'm sure that everybody knows me because I'm the a-hole that reached out. We got Mr. Joe Gillia, Garrett Weaver, Chad Riker, Michael Batiste, Jim Huntsman. Jim, we still can't hear or see you. And then Cesar Marino. Can you see?
I got a visual on.
Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you.
Yep.
I just okay, now I see it. You know what? Let me try
I have a visual. My scope is already on him. In the crosshairs, Jim.
I don't know why I'm not getting. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Hey, Huntsman, that $20 will be in the mail tomorrow.
I appreciate it. Hey, you know what? We shop at the same hat store there, Michael.
Did you just figure out that's what the $20 is in the mail tomorrow for?
Oh, I got you.
You got the easy
I thought
promo,
it was because
man.
you were dressed.
I know.
I thought it was because you were dressed.
Dude,
No,
you haven't seen him from the waist down.
I got to pay the advertising. Dude, if I could have found some flesh tone shorts, I guarantee I would have had it on and stood up partway through this and shocked the shit out of me.
Maybe we'll come up with a bet or something, and by the end of this thing, at least somebody will have their pants off around their ankles. Something we'll figure something out. We'll tarnish
Too
this.
late.
We'll tarnish this
Definitely too
hunting
late.
archery conversation for sure.
Too late.
Hey guy, I don't think you're using the SM7.
Yes, I am.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm positive. I'm talking.
Scratch it. You're not using it.
Is it going through my computer?
No.
Either way, you still sound sexy. Doesn't matter what it's.
There you go. Look, I like what he's talking
Still
about.
sound good.
This guy went from the minors to the majors in a heartbeat.
I guess we know who the fuck up in this class is.
I'll take it.
I guess we'll have to ask you and Joe after you guys get done after we record. Then we'll really know who the suck up is.
You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I keep switching around. I just barely got it. Once I heard their pants coming off, I was like, God, I got kids. I should use this thing and get it in my ear.
You know what? If the email chain wasn't a precursor to this was going to be some level of shenanigans, man.
Oh, God, dude. I was at work all day today, and all my phone just kept blowing up, and I was like, I know exactly what that's about. I can't say anything about it. I didn't even trust you guys enough to check my email.
That's a
wise
good
choice
thing.
there, Kyle.
You know,
What's that? Yeah.
we resemble that remark, dude. I mean, that's
So, guys, let's kick this off. I've been recording since we've been doing all this talking, so we will have some outtakes, and there'll be no denying what was said prior to us kicking off the episode. I appreciate you guys jumping on for this. I'm going to just go through, man. I'm going to do it in alphabetical order to the best of my small brain's memory. But we got Mr. Michael Batiste. I don't know, Mike, what are you batting, man? You about a 98% or 97% in the elk woods over the years, man.
That 96 to 98 range. So been extremely blessed.
So we're going to title Mike Mr. Home Run for this one. And then we got my buddy, Mr. Kyle Davidson. He's the engineer. He's the brains behind this band of miscreants. We had to have at least one brain. So Kyle,
I don't know if it's enough.
A membrane.
So Kyle, give us a little bit, man.
So I am the owner of DCA Custom Arrows. I specialize in making premium custom arrows. They're custom fit for your draw length, your bow IBO, your draw poundage, all that stuff. Go through, run all the numbers, make sure that you have an arrow that's going to fly straight and true and fast and hit hard out of your bow. On top of that, do custom wraps. Just happen to have some here. Custom wraps and make them look as good as they fly, man.
Heck yeah. And they fly good. And they pretty. I got some pretty wraps too. Mr. Joe Gillia, Mr. Instinctive. If it ain't broke, I ain't fixing it. What's happening, man?
Hey, how you doing tonight, man?
You know how I am. Same day, brother. Same thing.
Here in New Mexico, waiting on some snow to arrive, hoping to get more moisture like all you guys. Chad's down in Albuquerque, just a little ways down from me, and I think they've actually got more moisture than we have up in the hills, so we're waiting for that to happen. But, it's really cool to, I had never met Garrett before, and so I'm excited to do that. I've been watching Garrett going through his workouts and stuff, and all of these, posting that stuff, and been real proud of his work that he's been doing. So, Garrett, it's real nice to meet you, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Then we got Mr. Jim Huntsman, Mr. Do-It-All. And I think Jim is probably, and not just because Jim's a great guy, but Jim is very well-rounded in terms of hunting and his approach to hunting. And I thought he would bring a voice to this conversation. So, Jim, thanks, man. What's happening?
Hey, buddy, thanks for having me. I feel like I'm out of my league with all these guys you got on here.
Just wait till we start talking. We'll reel you in real fast, buddy.
Turn off the light. Hold on.
So give us a little bit, Jimbo.
Yeah, the pants are coming off. Lights are pants are coming down. The mood is set.
There. Setting the mood.
Yeah, what did you ask me something, Guy? I didn't quite hear you.
Just give us a little bit who you are, etc. Just real brief, and then we'll get into the whole.
Yeah, I'm Jim Huntsman. I'm the host of the Western Huntsman podcast up here in North Idaho, and I fail at hunting more often than I'm successful, and just glad to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, brother. And then we got my. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sandbagging guy.
Huh?
Jim's sandbagging, man.
Yeah, he may be, but I love when he says that. And then we got the Rook, my buddy Cesar Marino. What's up, brother?
How you guys doing? Just to kind of introduce myself, I haven't really been doing archery or hunting for very long. I've been doing archery for about 5 years now. I mean, I guess relative to y'all, you know what I mean? It's pretty brand new. And then this last year was my first year of serious hunting. I went with Guy to Colorado for 10 days and did some pig hunting and deer hunting over the summer. And I hope to continue the trend. So, but in any case, I've been doing archery for about 5 years. And my day job, I do audio for university here in Southern California. So that's why I kept telling Guy about his mic.
A couple quick notes. So this dude is an archer, like every sense of the word, an archer. Technical, pays attention to every aspect of his shot, wants to keep learning. I mean, this dude can flip and shoot, guys. And that's one of the reasons that I asked Cesar to be on, is because the dude is very articulate. He is very methodical, but he will soak up information and take that information and bend it to fit him. And it's beauty to see a new archer, especially with the flood of information, grab it like that and make it their own. The dude is, Garrett, you would enjoy shooting with Caesar. This dude can shoot like a son of a bitch. So
get him up to Hoodoo this year.
If I could make that, man.
I appreciate that guy.
I always tell you that. What are you talking about? But yeah, the dude can shoot. So, and to get his perspective in this conversation, I felt was a big deal. So thanks for joining us, Mr. Chad Riker, backcountry rookie. I'm going to say this dude went from the minors to the majors. In terms of, stepping up to the plate and really diving into, not just backcountry hunting, but hunting in general and every aspect of it. And then opening the door to, I don't even know, thousands and thousands of people that were looking to take the plunge. So Chad brings a lot to the table in terms of, taking all of this information that Garrett's putting out in. What's up, Chad? Welcome, man.
Hey, man, appreciate that little intro. I like to think of myself as well-rounded also, but it's more in the physical conditioning sense than anything to do with hunting. So, no, man, I appreciate you having me on. Hopefully I bring something to this table. You guys are all incredible that are on the panel here. So we'll see. Yeah, I may just be a fly on the wall back there.
No way. That's the plan. There's a reason that I chose everyone that's on here. There's an absolute reason from following. I pay attention to stuff. And then Mr. Garrett Weaver, man. And this is, again, alphabetical order. So not to last but least you, or least but last you, one of those. Yeah, Mr. Weaver, what's up, buddy?
Not much. Excited and humbled to be here among all of these guys. I've been see a lot of your guys' names. I follow a lot of you guys, and it's just to be invited onto this podcast is an honor, man. And I appreciate you for being kind of like the middle of the spider web, connecting all of us. It's always nice to make new friends and stuff. And the interesting thing, when you said Mike Batiste, him being like 98% in the woods, that totally reminded me of me, except unsuccessful. So we have something sort of in common, Mike, I guess.
Perfect. You could be in the woods and you could be lost in the woods too. So
I mean, I could. Is that like percentage of actually being in the woods or being successful? Because, but no, I'm excited for this conversation, guys, and everybody here. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. So
heck yeah. Well, I appreciate y'all for doing it. So I'm going to kick it off, man. I wasn't sure how I was going to control this, right? So I really want to have an open forum and I want to have some fun, but I do want to provide the listenership on my platform. And if you guys choose to use this, some valuable information, right? And there's so much information out there. How do we begin to meander our way through and find those things and aspects that work for us, right? And it's a trial and error thing, a lot of it. But it can be very, very confusing, coming into it. So I just wanted to kind of hit on that stuff and show folks that, hey, that you can do this no matter, where you're at in this process. So I think I'm going to go through one by one and we'll just start picking apart. If somebody has something to comment on, by all means, let the guy finish and then comment. I don't care if you trash him a little bit. That'll keep it fun. We can get a little bit long-winded. I know, Lord knows I can. Why is this thing doing this? This stupid email wants to pop up. Okay. I did it. Sorry, guys. All right. I'm going to just have to live with that until I can figure it out. So I kind of want to start with some simple questions to kind of each and every one of you. So I'll start with you, Mike. In terms of technology over the years, right? I mean, you've been in the woods for a long, long time. I mean, I remember a story. You're probably the only guy on this panel that has had a condom within 3 centimeters of your lips.
Why did I know you were going to go there?
But what have you seen in terms of the tech advances over the years, and how has that affected? I'm not going to say the game, but how has that affected your game? And have you seen any hindrance from year to year in your game because of those tech advances?
Yeah, I mean, the advancements in technology, when I started shooting archery in 1985, it was a Fred Bear 45-pound takedown recurve. Then I graduated from that to my first compound and still shot fingers and instinctive, and, finally gave into a sight and then a release aid. And, the advancements in technologies, I think, has really helped with accuracy. I mean, you can find all kinds of videos nowadays where people are drilling targets at 100 and 120 yards with a bow, and it's just absolutely insane. But then on the flip side too, you have a lot of people out there that all of a sudden I don't have a problem taking a 90-yard shot on an elk. And I got into archery to see how close I could get. And I've had a lot of conversations where people are like, do you realize how much skill it takes to execute a shot on an animal at that yardage? And I said, yeah, I do, because I practice long yardage all the time. Do you know how much skill it takes to get an elk at 4 yards with a call? And also on that shot, there's so many variables. And that's the part about archery, is removing as many variables as possible to increase your chances of success and taking that harvest home with you. And so, the advancement, it's been a help, but it's also been a hindrance, because on X, I mean, being able to scout areas and know where you're at out there, but also too, on the flip side, now a little bit of the woodsmanship skills is lost a little bit because we're relying on technology. And so it's a double-edged sword. It can help you go farther. It can help you find your way back. But on the flip side too, you lose some of those skills that some of the pioneers before us really, really had. So it's some of it I really, really like, and others it's like, come on, seriously? So are we just going to come out with something that's going to run out and do the hunting for us, and we can just sit in camp and go, okay, great, my tag's punched?
So, Mr. Gillia.
Yes, sir.
If it ain't broke, go kill with it, right? So in kind of opposition versus most of us here, right? You've been hunting with the same setup, the same bow, the same method for 25 plus years.
Yeah, the bow that I currently shoot is over 15 years old. It's the it's the Reflex Caribou made by Hoyt. It was the Chuck Adams bow, and that's because I'm a finger shooter, and I'm basically being manufactured into extinction right now. It's really hard for me to find a bow over 40 inches at that to shoot with fingers without having extreme finger pinch. So I've stuck with what I have. I mean, if it wasn't for guys around me that were like drug pushers pushing these new things on me sometimes, I'd still be shooting double X's, man. I mean, I shot double X 75s, and, I have shot wasp broadheads forever. I mean, I'd have to go on the internet to be able to find the old Camlock conicals for a long time. And, then they changed to the hammer, got some chisels. So some of that stuff changed a little bit. But, same bow for 15 years. And in the last 15 years, I've been 100% in the last, about that. So I've been blessed. But I think it really, when we talk about the technology of equipment, and when you talk about technology, period, and things like that, people can think that that's going to be a shortcut to success, when actually it's not about. So I've had all this pressure on me because my buddies are always telling me, you've killed an elk every year for the last so many years, right? And so you kind of go out there sometimes, and I never thought about it before. I just thought that was something I was supposed to do. And then
something we're all supposed to do. We just don't.
I'm doing it all wrong. I'm screwing it up every year.
And I'm out there one year and my bow blows up on me. So one thing you never do is travel on a four-wheeler with your bow mounted on the front, so that mud can get inside your axles, man, because it will roll that cable right off of it, man. And blew up on me. I always pull back before I go in. It blows up. So long story short, I come home. I tell my wife, well, I guess this is the one year I'm not going to get one. I said, I'm going to have to, and she goes, why? And I said, I'm going to have to get my other bow, get it out there, get it set up, shoot it, and then get back up in the mountains. And she's like, I didn't know it was about the equipment. I thought it was about the hunter behind the equipment. And I mean, my wife smacks me in the face all the time. She's like, she keeps it real, right? And she's exactly right. She's exactly right. So I haven't had to change anything. It works. I actually think I have advantage with what I use in my setup. It doesn't take me very long. I don't have to think about a lot of things. I don't think I'm smart enough to shoot like you guys do, actually.
So, Mr. Davidson, where's the line between archery, the tech, and that advancement from the engineer, right?
Yep. I think I'm not as I'll say distinguished, because I don't want to say old and offend everybody else that's already going. But, I haven't been shooting as long. I'm kind of new to the game, but I do see the advancements, and I hear what you guys are saying. It is kind of sugarcoating it or something, or trying to make it a little too easy or something like that. But I also think that the counterpoint to that is that bows are getting better. They're more reliable. They're better tuned. People are getting into that game and figuring out how it's done. So I think that it is helping people that don't have all the skill to be able to get out there and be able to get the job done. But it is a slippery slope, as they say, that you don't want to make it too easy so that somebody just gets, carried to a place, they set them down, they shoot an elk, and then they go home. That's not part of it. Like what I do is I always tell people, you could go in a shop as you guys do and grab a handful of arrows and go back out and shoot and kill a lot of things with it. What I do with kind of I'm kind of the counterpoint to everybody, because I am the technology guy, but I stack the deck in the favor for that shot. So somebody that didn't have all the success or wasn't able to tune their bow perfectly or something like that, maybe I'm helping them get to that point. So now when they do take that shot, hopefully they're doing things ethically and working for it and everything. But when they do, it's a higher success rate. Again, just trying to stack the deck in their favor. But I think that, it used to be, and I haven't been doing it nearly as long as those guys, but the bows now are a lot more universal. They're all good. There's nothing that's really wrong. Now you're finding just one that you like, that fits you. It's kind of just picking on a glove now, instead of finding one that's not going to blow up on you as much. And then the consistency in manufacturing and all that kind of stuff, things are being done on computers, which is the counterpoint to everybody. But arrows are now more consistent, and along with the bows, the components, things are made better. The broadheads are getting, better made, sharper, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it is moving in the right direction. I think it's always going to be hard. You could take every shortcut you want, but to get the job done, you'd have to put in the work. So
that's sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because, Kyle and I did a test. So Kyle, remember? So yeah, I had
long ago.
Yeah. Cause everybody's walking into an archery shop, and Eric, you can attest to this, because you and I have talked about this a little bit. Everybody walks up to the rack and they look for the 001. I need the straightest, the most tolerance, tight tolerance, everything. And so when I got a hold of Kyle, and I'm like, okay, I want you to put your money where your mouth is. Build me a budget arrow. Go with the lowest grade that you have and build me a dozen budget arrows. Those things group just as good as walking in and spending almost twice the price on an 001.
Right. Yeah, you're talking the difference of a human hair.
No, that's what I tell people. So this is going to make a lot of people mad, but whatever. It's the truth. I
goaded you into this, Kyle.
I don't mind, man. I don't say anything I'm a mechanical engineer in my day job, for everybody that doesn't know that. And I've spent my entire career in R&D. So I've been doing research and development in mechanical engineering the last 21 years. I'm older than people think that I am. But I mean, people would come in with a napkin sketch, and then I would have to take that napkin sketch and make a product out of it. And that involved a lot of people, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, everything. We had to work together to do it. But when I go in and say, you know, this arrow is an 005 or an 008 or an 006 or an 001 straightness, everybody's like, oh, give me the straight, you know, give me that straight 001. The difference between 003 and 001 is half of a human hair. And so, I mean, if there's a better way to make an arrow, I try to find it and I try to do it. I'm not half a human hair accurate with all my arrows, but you know, it's a big selling point to people, is getting that straightness. I think that just on the arrow side, because that's all I really know, the consistency in the spine and the consistency of the spine around the arrow and the consistency of the spine in the set is way more important than just about anything else. And if that spine is super consistent in the set, then that will actually take care of like the weight of it, because they can't be very different in weights and not have consistency in the spine. So yeah, and there are really, really expensive arrows out there that I've tested myself on my own spine gauge, and they're not good arrows. So, I mean, you know, you can build a great arrow out of, you know, I think I made you gold tip hunters, I think, or velocities, one of the two. Yeah, and it's a good arrow. It's just not an expensive arrow. And there's better arrows out there for certain reasons, but you know, you could do a lot with a little. And I think that's kind of what you guys are saying too. You know, you have a bow that's 15 years old, and you know, you could go out and get the job done. It's how it's tuned and how it works for you. What are you doing, Michael?
You flipping him on his head with all the information.
He's just blown me away with this knowledge.
So I'm going to throw it to Mr. Huntsman with what the guys have just said, right? And I think Kyle framed it kind of perfectly there, is we're looking for shortcuts, right? In my opinion, everybody wants to, you automatically go to the gear, right? But you got to fix the archer first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said. You hear this argument all the time on social media. You watch, you know, heaven forbid anybody bring up the 6.5 Creedmoor, right? And
kick him off.
You look at the arguments between arrows and bows and rifles and even muzzle loaders, and there is something to be said for take what you have and learn how to use it well, right? And because you guys, it sounds like just listening to you guys talk, you're a lot more technical than I am. I'm kind of like Joe. I've got a 10-year-old PSE Stinger I'm still using, and I know Michael Batiste is going to be rolling his eyes at my bow setup, but you know, it's been working for me, you know, and I did make a deal with my wife though. We're looking at selling our house, and if the house sells by like April 15th, I'm getting a new bow. I'm going to finally upgrade. But for me, I'm just not a super technical guy, and I don't spend a lot of time worrying about, you know, some of these technical details that even you guys are talking about. It's for me, I have my bow, I have my arrows, I have my broadheads, and I shoot them a lot. Yeah. And for the most part, it's served me well. But there's also something that could be said. I think that I called both Michael and Joe this last September when I hit a bull up on the mountain, and I drove all the way to the top of the mountain to get phone service. And I was totally confused as to what happened. I don't quite know where the arrow hit. The bull ran off, and I thought he was dead, and I'd find him in the morning, and just never did. And so I was running scenarios by those guys going crazy. And so there might be something, you know, to that too. Maybe I'm not technical enough, and that's why what happened last September happened to me. And so that's just kind of. I wouldn't say it's old school. I would say it's more of a lack of interest in super technical gear, because I just really don't have a lot of high end technical gear that I'm always upgrading. I find something that works and I keep it for years.
Stick with it. So
I don't think it would have mattered what you were using, but you know, sometimes we can do everything right, totally right, and things can go to crap in a hurry, and it happens. And
very true.
I've seen. You know, I had a hunter this year put it in the pocket, quartering away. And somehow that arrow deflects, gets one lung and comes out 8 inches behind the other lung on the other side. So what we should have had as a slam dunk ends up being a 30-hour search for an animal. That stuff happens. It happens.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I wanted to have Garrett follow this whole thing up, but Jim kind of brought it into where I think Garrett would fit in, right? Because out of all of us, and forgive me guys if I misplace you in this, and I've always appreciated Garrett's quest to never stop advancing his craft in archery, right? And not necessarily looking for an easier way, but always looking for something that fit his scenarios and fit him better. And I've always appreciated that. And, his staying in his lane, if you will, right? And kind of keeping us in that lane with him and sharing what I'm going to call a gear or archery adventure with everybody. So I think Jim's segue into Garrett was perfect. So Garrett, we look at what Jim was saying about, this ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's sort of like a Jillia thing. You're on the opposite end of that spectrum to a point, right? And it's not that it's broke, but that constant evolution, if you will.
Yeah, I couldn't probably be more opposite. So, if it's working perfectly, I seem to want to find the thing that doesn't work perfectly, so everybody else can know about it. So, I'm constantly shooting. I get asked the question all the time, what broadheads and arrows am I shooting? And it's always, I don't know yet. Ask me in a week. Ask me when my arrows are in my quiver and I'm out on the trail, or, I don't know yet. And so, my perspective is, you got to do what's best for you. Number one, if that's shooting, an XX75, I think like Joe was talking about, then shoot an XX75, or shoot a mechanical if you think that's what's best. I wouldn't suggest it, but do whatever you think is going to make you the most successful, because I believe confidence pours into success. And, I've seen guys that they couldn't call their way out of a paper bag, but they were so confident and they knew what to say, maybe not the best way to sound good or say it, and they'll go out and kill elk every year. Right. I mean, I got cousin who wears Hickory and Carhartts and kills one almost every opening weekend. It's just, I couldn't tell you about it. Right. So, but yeah, my lane is testing gear and finding out what works, finding, how can I be a little bit more accurate? Is that building a better arrow? Is that tuning better? Is that shooting this workout versus shooting this workout? I mean, I don't think I posted it, but I was out in the middle of the pouring rain, testing my second and third access before last weekend's shoot, because my buddy Anthony drove over from Bend. And I was going to be damned if he was going to drive 2.5 hours to come beat me. And so I was, and I won. That's
the whole point of the story. Nothing else matters. That was the whole point.
Long way around. Yeah. Sorry, guys. So, but no, he shot really good. And I'm, if I wouldn't have taken that little trip out to the range, I would have got beat, And so, I'm super competitive, but I think, to piggyback off of, I forget who it was that was saying it, but, woodsmanship is kind of a cost of tech. And on my platform, the last probably year or half a year, I've been stepping back from being more of a gear guy and transforming it into woodsmanship. And my episodes with the bro guys, that's pretty much all I want to hit on is woodsmanship skills, because I've built myself up to be the gear guy. But honestly, what's costing me more opportunities and more success is my woodsmanship skills. I've killed elk at 81 yards, right in the pocket, but I'm more proud of that 17-yard kill, right? Like that's a way cooler story. That's the heart of bow hunting. And there's just two different dynamics there. But as a bow hunter, my perspective is a little bit different than Mike's. Is I'm not good enough to get multiple shot opportunities a year. I'm taking the first one that's putting meat in my freezer that's inside my wheelhouse. And if that's 80 yards, which it is, I'm going to shoot it. Right. So I'm going to put that meat in my freezer, and I'm going to work at getting better in the meantime. And so, and one thing that I've seen is tech has cost people opportunities. Absolutely. You have Onyx Hunt, guys are looking at their phone, there goes an animal. And if you would have been paying attention, you would have killed it. And I had I'll throw Anthony under the bus again here. We were on Sled Springs last day, and he's figuring out his next lady of the night. And here comes a bull walking up on his side as we have him coming in, and we're waiting, and he's texting honeys, and here comes this bull right up. And if you would have been paying attention, you would have said, hey, get ready, draw. And then so the bull stops at 40 yards, and I have my bow on my shoulder, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. And then he trots off. So that's his fault. But that's technology. I mean, phones, the zero Garmin sight, electronics on your bow, Onyx. I mean, Onyx has made me a lot more successful, but I guarantee you it's costed me animals I don't even know about. So woodsmanship's going to kill more animals than any technology any day. I will stand by that statement. But being a more capable hunter is all part of the journey, and that's kind of where my lane comes into is increasing your capabilities as an archer. Your effectiveness. Yeah.
If I could take that just a little bit to the other side, though, what Garrett's talking about Onyx is, yes, I agree what he's saying, but on the other hand, it has increased the ability for somebody to hunt fearlessly. And especially if they have woodsmanship skills. And I think for a lot of guys that brought woodsmanship to the game in the first place, that was able to combine Onyx with that, it's like, no, I don't have to worry about knowing where that fence line is. I don't have to worry about seeing that one landmark all the time. If that bull bugles, I don't care where that's coming from. I'm diving because I have something that's a little bit safer in my pocket, and I'm going to get back. And it doesn't matter if it's 2 hours after dark. I'm going to get there. So I really think, and it was just the GPS. I mean, the GPS before Onyx ever came in, just to have the ability to put that compass on that GPX, point it back to camp or your bike or wherever you're going, and not have to worry. In fact, you didn't even, because the early GPS's batteries only lasted so long, but you were able to convert that to your compass, and you were heading in the right direction no matter what. So I think for me, that was one of the biggest game changers, because it didn't matter if I was in southern New Mexico and one corner or another one. It didn't matter how well I knew the area. If I knew elk and I knew where to look for them, and if I heard one, they were in trouble because I was going. I had no second thoughts of closing the deal. So in that sense, I think it really changed the game and made a lot of guys way more successful.
Or go ahead.
Do you think, Joe, that you're shooting your older bow? Do you think that with more advancements in technology, because like a lot of guys that I build for, they don't have time to build their own arrows, and they don't have time to do a lot of the testing and things like that. So what I give them is kind of what you're talking about is, if you put your pin on it, that arrow is going to go where it needs to go. They're going to be consistent. Do you think that kind of, maybe those advancements help that as well, allow people to focus more on the hunt than, worrying if their bow's going to blow up or anything?
If they're that kind of minded person, though, Kyle, but what I've seen is just the opposite thing. It's kind of like, I was a coach for years, and I coach high jumpers and I coach pole vaulters. And instead of remembering that their goal was to fly and jump high, it was like, well, my right foot was too far this way. I leaned too much this way. All of this stuff where I have guys in my own crew that we always keep judos on our bow, because we like to shoot judos the whole time. It really keeps you in, keeps you hot during the hunt. And one of the guys in our crew, every time he's shooting off to the left, man. And he's like, yeah, that's that daggum arrow, man. It's just that and it's like in his head, and he's already trying to figure why this has happened and stuff. I said, let me see your arrow. And so I grab his judo, and we always shoot stuff that's just sitting out there. I pull it back, let it fly, nail it. And he looks at me and he's like, it's not your weight. It's not your length. It's none of that, but you pulled it back, and he's like, I'm shutting up, instead of complaining, I just don't like when the technology gets in the way of the head and they find excuses within it. That's all.
Yeah. I think you need to keep the excuses and keep your, not rely on it and not look to it as a crutch, but if it's helping you with the hunt, I think it's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. I'm the first one to say, if it helps somebody be accurate and have a quick, ethical, responsible kill, man, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and Joe, I agree with what you just said, because we've always had that same mentality. Also, we hear a bugle, and our mentality is, let's get after it. Let's get it on the ground. We'll figure out how to get it out of here later.
Yeah.
And I mean, before Onyx and all that, yeah, I mean, brutal pack outs into some gnarly holes. And now that is kind of a nice feature to where you can pull that up and go, man, there's an old cut road right over here. So instead of going straight up, we're going to go down through the bottom, pop up a little bit on the other side and take that old cut road out, which, yeah, now you do have that ability to, man, there's a bugle in the bottom of that canyon, where a lot of people will just stay up on the ridge and go, I ain't going down in there.
But Mike, do you think that's lent itself to people looking at the contours on that map and saying, oh, hell no, even hearing that bugle?
It depends on the mindset. Yeah, you will have those people that are like,
I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're the idiot ones that are going to go like, there's a bugle, well, let's go. And then we're down on the bottom, and then it's like, did you bring a knife and a fork? Because we're gonna have to put this dude down here. We're
loaf of bread, man.
So no, I think it goes both ways. I think some people, will take a look at it. We'll take a look at those contour lines and go, you know what, we can go find elk in an easier spot. That's going to be easier to get it out. But those people that are really
Garrett's lying. I've seen that rosy country he hunts.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but no, other people. It does. It gives them that confidence that they're like, you know what? Hey, I can get this animal out of here. Packing an elk off the mountain is not an easy task. So, I mean, it's flat out work. And so if you have that ability to where you can find an alternate route out of there or this or that. And I think too, it's a great tool, pop up on your computer at home and really scout your area. And like Joe touched on, get to know your area even better. And it's amazing how all of a sudden you find little tiny hidden pockets, because that's one thing that I've loved about it. When out hunting the area and you stumble across something, it's like, man, I never even knew this was here. Drop a pin, how to find your way back to that instead of, God, I think we're heading the right direction. Do you remember that tree over there? Did we go left of the tree or right of the tree, or how do we get in there? So it gets you back into some of those spots.
But at the same time, make sure you're not a passenger.
Right.
Make sure that you're a driver, because those guys that just start looking down at that and just, following that magnetic, pin going someplace, they forget to look behind them to see what it looks like where they've just come from, and pay attention to the areas around them. So just don't be a passenger in the process. Be an active participant.
I pride myself in being able to walk in the woods and be lost but not get lost. You know what I mean? Like that, to me, that is a huge part of woodsmanship, is being able to get those bearings, keep those bearings, and know that path you're on, right? And I think a lot of that comes from, a lot of the map time before Onyx, and just spending time, in that country or on those maps and understanding what you're diving into. Caesar will tell you, man, I'll just get going and we'll just walk. And it's like, okay, we're here. Let's go. There's something about that that's very, very satisfying, especially when you don't notch the damn elk tag.
Yeah, I have to say that was pretty impressive. That was one of the first things I noticed, that when we went up there, how you were just going and I was the one in the back with Onyx. Although I will say that I was trying my hardest not to be a participant myself. I was looking down, but I was also trying to look up because I didn't want to get lost either.
So hold on, Mike. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's get to Mr. Riker. I want to get through these and then we'll go crazy. So Chad, how do you streamline it, right? How do we take all this information, the flood, and then how do you streamline that and figure out what works for you in terms of getting that archery going to where that confidence is up so you can go in the woods and do what we're setting out to do?
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I don't listen to any of you. I pick up my bow, I take my bow, and I go out and I shoot it, and I become confident in that bow. Right? There's so much, and I respect all of you guys on here. I'm just kidding when I say I don't listen to you, because I truly do. But there's so much other garbage out there on the social media platforms that are telling all of these tips and tricks and all of these things. And the fact of the matter is you need to grab your bow and you need to go shoot it, and you need to not care about what anybody says, except for Garrett Weaver. You got to listen to Garrett Weaver.
Hey, you know what? I will say, dude, okay, Garrett puts up some stuff that, and it's not left field, right? But it's this thought process that Garrett has, and he was saying that, like, how do you improve that? And some of the stuff has been phenomenal. And, you know, Garrett's quite a few years younger than most of us, but I can look back to some of Garrett's earlier videos. And I told Garrett when I met him at Hoodoo, like, dude, I love the information you put out. One, it's this unbiased approach just from his view. Like, hey, if you like it, you like it. You don't, you don't. But man, Chad, I agree that it just works because Garrett spends so much time thinking about, well, maybe not that much time. Sorry, I don't want to make it sound like that. But he puts what feels like so much thought process and heart into what he's doing. It's beautifully put together, and you can take so much more away from something he's doing than some damn, you know, some guy tinkering because he's sale pitching his 15%. No offense to anyone out there.
I will tell you,
I'm buttoning my hat here just because my head's getting bigger by a second here.
I know. So I will tell you that I love technology. I love everything about it, and I love tinkering with new things. I think a lot of times people will say things like, you know, Joe's talking about his 15-year-old bow and how he doesn't like to make change, but he's getting on a four-wheeler and he's riding that four-wheeler out. And I think a lot of times people refuse to take a technology that's out there because they're so comfortable with something, but you'll use every other new technology that's available to you.
That's a good point.
You know,
Damn good point.
It's because and I'll also point down here towards Kyle too, because I think that we have resources out here that can help us. I don't have time to build my own arrows, man. I don't build my own arrows. I don't like fletching arrows. I don't like doing anything with arrows. And if I could buy a kick-ass arrow from a guy like Kyle, and that saves me a whole afternoon or even a whole day or however long it takes me to screw up a dozen arrows and try to refletch them and then screw them up again and redo them again. That's a day where I could be out shooting 100 arrows at a target. And I know that I'm getting quality, because I promise you, Kyle can make a way better product than what I can make, no doubt in my mind, which will then increase that accuracy and increase that confidence. So there's a trail there. Could I put the time and effort into it to become a very good fletcher and to set up my own arrows? Probably. I probably could, but I'm not going to. I can tell you that. I'd rather put that time into, I could put it all kinds of different places. Family, so that I know when it's coming time for me to go hunting, I've put all that family time in and I'm ready to leave for 10 days or whatever it is. So I think that we have options out there that really can help us. And we do have new technologies that can help us. Some of it I don't agree with, right? I don't really agree with the zero side and some of these other things that are out there. But I do think that we do have technology that is just putting us light years ahead. My first bow when I was like 12 years old was a little Hoyt Game Getter Junior thing that had no break over. Like, that thing was terrible, you know, and I put a bow down for about, I don't remember, about 10 years after I was a kid. And when I picked up my first newer model bow, that thing was incredible, right? Like, I can't believe some of the advancement that's happened in bows. Like, you would never think it could. I look at I keep pointing over here because I got my bow sitting over here, but I look at this thing and I can't, like, what is 5 or 10 years from now, man? What are we going to have? What are these things going to be like 5 or 10 years? Anyway, sorry about that. That was a ramble.
That's perfect. All right. So, last and least, Caesar. So with everything we talked about and with what Chad just said, and I was trying to tie this way, and since you're early in your archery career, influence versus practical use, what have you seen as you're streaming all this information and now you're taking that, you know, to the range and then beyond the range into the woods?
I mean, I think at first I felt like I've been doing this kind of arc thing here. And so at first I knew nothing. Right. I just was trying to learn as much as I could. And then I realized the sorts of technologies that you could use with your bow. Now, it's interesting to hear how, since I've only been doing this for 5 years, like the technology in bows in the last 5 years, I mean, I don't know that it's changed a ton. Like I shoot a triax, and that was, I bought that bow 3 years ago. So like, the drastic changes you guys are talking about, like I haven't seen that. So, I know what I know, right? But at the beginning, it was like I knew nothing, and then I just wanted to consume all archery information as much as I could and try to do everything on my own, or at least as much as I could on my own. And, a lot of that has to do because the archery shops here in Southern California suck. So I had to figure it out on my own.
Suck.
Seriously.
It's very funny. I hear that all over the country, though. Like people tell me that.
It's
all
not
the
just
time.
Southern California.
Oh no, dude. It's and I've been to a bunch of shops in a bunch of Western states, and there's not a shade of BS in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then it turned into this like I'm just going to get as much of the best stuff as I could. And then eventually I started realizing that like, I need to shoot more. I need to, this is all nice, but I just need to shoot more. And I think over the last maybe year, I've kind of gotten into this point where, especially in the last few months, actually, I was thinking to myself, should I get a new bow? Should I get a new something? I just don't feel the need to, because it's like I'd rather just shoot my bow more. Like I feel like I still group really well. So I feel like I've done this. Like I don't know anything, and I don't have anything, to this. I want everything, and I'm trying to learn everything, to this. I kind of like what I have right now, and I'll shoot this for maybe another year or two. I don't know. Depends on how I feel, but that's kind of. I think the technology at least for me, I think at the end of the day, if you're not shooting, it don't matter. That's just, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. If you're not shooting, you could be 10 yards. And if you're not practicing and you know how to shoot 10 yards with your 30-yard pin or whatever, like, hey, it ain't gonna happen.
And that really rounds up this entire part of this conversation, right? It goes back to the archer. In every aspect of this, it's, shooting, becoming the better archer, doing what works for you. The time behind the string is ultimately what's going to measure our ability as archers, as, bow hunters. I like to say archery hunters, right? Because if you're diving into it like this, it's definitely an archery world and not a bow hunt world. So I'm gonna jump in. I want to talk about process, right? And I'm going to start this one off with Garrett. Garrett, talk us through your process as fast as you can, right? When you're looking at getting, in those off months, and you're like, hey, I want to shoot this weight arrow this year with this much FOC and this component, and then taking that from your table in the shop to the range. What's that process look like, getting prepped for the next season?
Well, my goal is honestly, is to be ready to shoot a broadhead at an animal 365 days a year, right? So that you're always on top of your equipment, because you never know when that surprise pig hunt's going to come. You never know, spring bear season, you may get a shot, whatever it may be. So I'm always refining, but I'm always shooting broadheads, and I'm always technically, rabbit ears tuned. But for me, I'm figuring out what I like, what I don't like actually during the season. I'm not making any changes because I'm stuck with what I'm stuck with during season. But my stuff comes from requests, a new arrow that comes out, ARWD arrows, or maybe arachnid arrows or whatever. Those are the ones I keep getting hit up about right now. And then I'll go look at those. I'll test those out. I'll test out new fletchings, but I'm always shooting broadheads and stuff. And honestly, it's keeping the edge. It doesn't take more than a couple weeks to really lose an edge, or even a week, honestly. And if you're a trad bow, you need to be shooting almost every day, if not every day. So compound stuff, you can get away with a little bit more. But my process, I guess, is what are my plans? What do I plan on being hunting? I build for worst case scenario, which for me would be elk. And I can go to Africa with elk. I can go to With an elk arrow, I can go to Alaska. I can do whatever. I can kill a grizzly bear. It doesn't really matter. An elk's, if I build a 500 grain arrow shooting 270 feet per second, I can kill pretty much anything. So it really comes down to head selection. What's the hot buzz ones? What ones can I dispel quickly? You got like, I'll just Zeus, for example. That was like, oh my God, Zeus was like the coolest broadhead 2 years ago or a year ago. And it was like, yeah, let's test that real quick just so we can knock that one out, right? Like get that one out of the pool and tell people, yeah, there's other heads on the market there. But and then keeping in shape, which I had post elk season depression this year. I had the worst year I've ever had in the hunting woods, and I did not care after I came out. I gained 15 pounds in between November and January. I ate everything in sight, and I didn't run. I didn't do anything. And so that's where my fitness journey is coming back into play here. So I don't know if that answers your question. Huh?
I said I knew I'd like you.
I don't know those 15 pounds you lost. I'll take them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question. I mean, honestly, it's easier to keep an edge than it is to get one back, and it's easier to stay in shape than it is to get in shape. And if you're not ready to go hunting 365 days a year, you're doing something wrong, man. Because there should always be something on the table, something that you're looking forward to, something that you're excited about. Axis deer are hitting in July, like there's places you can go hunt an axis deer in Hawaii and they're hard horned, or there's just so many opportunities out there. And instead of buying gear and a new bow, I'm still shooting a Evoke 31, which is like a 2-year-old bow. I haven't done that since I made the transition into woodsmanship and buy opportunities instead of gear. Right. So, that's my spiel, I guess, is keep that edge and refine, but don't ever lose the edge. I mean, that's my process right now, is shoot all the time and work out all the time and figure out what my next hunt is.
What would an episode of the Western Huntsman podcast be without me mentioning our sponsors that make this show possible? Guys, check out Phelps Game Calls, probably our oldest sponsor. And Phelps Game Calls is one of those companies that inspires me and inspires a lot of people, because it started in a garage, and now it's one of the leading call companies in the industry. So I don't care if you're going out to call turkeys. I don't care if you're going out to call in bears or coyotes, or obviously the number one mainstay of Phelps Game Calls, bugling in the mighty Wapiti. That's right. That's my favorite game calls. For me, I use the Renegade and the Maverick and the Phelps Pink signature call. I love all these calls, whether you're using diaphragms, you need bugle tubes, you need external calls. They have it all. They have deer calls. They're coming out with new stuff all the time. And Phelps Game Calls are all manufactured right here in the United States. Started by a really cool dude that's been on the show a few times. His name is Jason Phelps. It's one of those companies that you could just trust. You can count on. The gear, the products are great. They're American made, and they're ready to go. Get on PhelpsGameCalls.com and check out all the calls that are available. And don't forget to use promo code Huntsman10 for 10% off of your Phelps Game Call order. Next, we got SKRE Gear, another one of the OG sponsors of the Western Huntsman podcast. Guys, I love SKRE Gear. You got to check out SKRE Gear. If you're running around the woods in some Walmart camo or something because you think that high-end technical hunting apparel is too expensive, you haven't been on the SKRE Gear website. I love the hard scrabble pants. You know what? They got these Bridger glassing mitts, and I'm telling you, they will change your life. I've got a pair of these Bridger glassing mitts, and they're just freaking incredible. They kept me on the mountain this last winter a lot longer than I usually would, because my hands are like one of the first things that goes cold when I'm sitting there just glassing up, whether I'm wolf hunting or whatever. You got to check out the Bridger glassing mitts. It's like one of my favorite things that they've got. And they're also coming out with a new camo pattern. It's available right now for pre-order, but they've also got the other patterns still available. Jump on there and check out SKRE, because this company backs up their stuff. It's got a lifetime warranty. It's also got the VIP sizing guarantee, which means if you order up a pair of pants, or let's say you get the hard scrabble vest and it doesn't fit right, it comes with a pre-packaged return slip that you just throw on the package and send it back, and they send you the right size. you can't beat it, guys. The price point of SKRE, in comparison to the other high-end technical apparel that's available out there, will blow your mind. Check it out, SKREgear.com. Promo code the Western Huntsman for 15% off and free shipping. Tactacam is the final one on this list today, folks. If you are interested in or have done in the past filming your hunts, you've got to check out the Tactacam. I use the Tactacam 5.0. I've got a few of them, and I can control like 2 or 3 of them from my app. They're super cool to get those POV or just filming your hunt in general, which I highly recommend because you could really kind of coach yourself and learn some of the mistakes that maybe you're not paying attention to in the field when you're out there, especially like calling in that big bull. Get it on camera, get it on film so you can go back and watch it. That's what I do, and it's made me a better hunter. And there's no better way to do that than with Tactacam. Tactacam has got all the attachments. You could do a head harness, you could do a flex clamp, you could attach it to your shoulder, you could mount it to your weapon where that's legal in different states and different units, so make sure you're checking that, and get all these different angles and film your hunt and put it, whether you want to put it on YouTube to get like, you know, put out the big time hunting content, or you just want to keep it for yourself for memories. Tactacam has you covered. They've also got the reveal cell cam, which I love. It'll send you pictures in real time and let you know what's going on, whether you're managing property for like whitetails or whatever. I use it to kind of as security on my property. If I've got riffraff coming on the property, I'll know about it immediately. Also, if I have a grizzly bear wandering on the property, I know not to just send the kids out. Love that reveal cell cam. You guys got to get you one of those. We're going to have some really cool giveaways coming up with Tactacam, so stay tuned for that, because they also have other things like the film through scope. You can film right through the scope, whether you're target shooting or hunting, get that shot in. Again, check your state regulations, whether or not that's legal or not. Either way, go to Tactacam.com, check it out, and stay tuned for some really kick-ass giveaways coming down the pike from Tactacam. So let's get back into it. Here we go.
So, Mr. Huntsman, you go with the same thing. What's your process, be it, you know, off season or that 2 weeks before season when you pull your bow out?
You know, I in full disclosure, I used to be that guy. I would pull my bow out, you know, 2 weeks before season. And this was years ago, but I'm on Team Garrett right now with that. I think that it's critical that you know, that there's like this hashtag going around that there is no off season, and you know, you can make light of that, but really there's not. And especially for where I live, you know, it's there's always something going on other than in the dead of summer. In July and August, I don't have any seasons. Other than that, it's either elk season, it's deer season, it's bear season. I'm hunting wolves, turkeys, and you know, it just is kind of continuous. And to Garrett's point, where, you know, I kind of did the same thing where I came out of this last season and I got a little bit lethargic and it got out of shape. That and that's not like me. I like to stay in shape, and I'm no, you know, I'm not like as physical as Garrett. Look, you look like you're in a lot better shape than me. And,
go look at Garrett's last post in the gym. He disagrees.
But you know, it's I think that, and we talk about this a lot on my show, like hunting is a lifestyle. It's not for most of us that take hunting serious, it's not just this passive hobby like bottle collecting, right? And it's not something we just kind of do a couple of weekends out of the year. This is serious stuff. And I listen to everybody's podcast. I watch everybody's videos. I do all the things necessary to kind of keep me in the game in the right headspace year round, because it's made me a lot better hunter. It's made a big difference, you know. And so, yeah, I think that if you're asking specifically what my process is, I don't know that I can answer that, because my process is changing a lot too. You know, the amount of times I shoot my bow and or even a rifle, I've got a rifle sitting in here right now because I've got a coyote next door killing my neighbor's chickens, and I know he's crossing right behind this window behind me. So I'm gonna get him. I'm hoping to get him on the show.
Get them on the show.
Yeah.
My process, it always changes. I mean, it's what I'm doing to gear up for bear season this year is totally different than what I was doing last year, because I'm going to try baiting this year. So I'm going to haul a 55-gallon barrel up on the mountain. I've never done that before. And it's going to be interesting. And so, I think that the important thing is just to have a process and a mindset of preparation as season is coming. And it doesn't really need to be something super specific or, don't fall into some of these trends that go on out there. Just have some kind of planning, some kind of method and mindset that every day I am doing something to make myself a better outdoorsman or a hunter or a woodsman. I really like the woodsman discussion. And so that's the kind of stuff that I think that would be important to pay attention to for sure.
So in that, I mean, and you guys both answered in line of how I thought, right? If we are truly trying to measure our success, be it in the bear woods, the deer woods, the elk woods, chasing pigs, or in Garrett's case, a high dollar axis hunt, you really measure your success throughout the entire year, right? You can't limit your effort and success to that 2 weeks before season and the time you spent out on the mountain. It's really measured from, when that season ends to what you're going to put up into that season, going forward. So this is a joint question. I'll let both of you guys answer since you were girlfriending up Mr. Batiste and Gilia there. Gilia.
Who's going to take whose name with this girlfriend thing? That's what I want to know.
So
it's hyphenated.
So there's something interesting that Mike did. And he pulled his peep off his bow, right? And when Mike said, "I'm taking my peep off my bow," I said, "Mike's a fucking lunatic. Like, there's no reason for this, right? This is craziness." But then Joe, that's just a Joe thing, right? So understanding your equipment is what I want you guys to get into. So I'll let you guys argue lovers quarrel about who goes first on that, but I want you both to hit that.
I'll let age before beauty. So Joe, go right ahead.
Yeah. So you were talking about a process before. So I am going to be 59 in November. So I'm like knocking on that 60 door up there. And so there's a lot of things I have to do. So yeah, I'll take the age part of it there. And I want to be kind of clear on something too, is that I shoot what I shoot, not because I am anti anything. All of my buddies, Luis is just incredible. He's doing the adult arrow thing. He does a lot of tests like Garrett does. I watched all of Garrett's broadhead tests that he did. I was just enthralled by that, man. I just love his scientific approach that he did with the bros then. And so, it's not that I'm anti that. It's just that I'm kind of like, my bow is like an extension of me. Like when you talk about you have to shoot. I never think about that because I'm an archer. I'm a bow hunter. I'm shooting whether it's rabbits, squirrels, anything I can find, man. I just love to shoot. And as being instinctive, I have to shoot anywhere from 80 to 120, 140 arrows a day, just to stay in that kind of tune. So because I shoot by when I'm out there and that animal comes out, it's by that feel. It's by, I guess you guys know what I mean. When you look at something, it's kind of like a guy that does a pistol. You can kind of point at it, know where it's going, and boom, it's there, right? So I have to have that. And if I'm going to be responsible to put an animal down, I had better put the time in. And, so my piece of equipment, yeah, it's a lot like Caesar said, is that it might be 15 years old, but my bow still shoots 270 feet per second. It shoots a broadhead on the front of an arrow, and it passes through animals, man. And that is what you want out of your equipment. And you want the person behind it to put it in the right spot where it needs to happen. That's the equation. I think what I do better and what I think makes me successful is not so much the equipment. The equipment just becomes an extension of me. It's that I am able to eliminate failure points. So whenever there's so many times that we are in great situations and encounters, and we don't capitalize on that because of small failure points along the way that we either haven't found because of our equipment or because we've changed the equipment, or we haven't worked with our equipment and the rest of the gear that we're doing, or we haven't done things in conditions. So it has nothing to do with the fact that I wouldn't want to be shooting a different bow. In fact, I just found out today, I'm a guide, so I'm usually hunting a certain time of the year, and then I'm guiding the rest. So I don't get to hunt as much as the rest of you guys, believe it or not, even though I spend a ton of time in the woods, right? Well, but I just found out one of my clients is sending me a new bow, and I'm like, what am I going to do, man? It's like I'm in this quandary right now.
Stressing you out a little bit.
What's that?
I says it's stressing you out a little bit.
It is a little bit, dude, because I think my bow is a lot. I've been married to my wife for 39 years, right? And I mean, when you find something that works, you stick with it. And if you know how it works, and I'll tell you another thing too. I think if you look at all my stuff in the past coming up to a certain point, I'm a retired teacher coach. So my income level raising a family did not allow me to buy different equipment all the time. I would have probably done that exploration, but my money had to go into tags. My money had to go into putting gas in my vehicle. My money had to go into things so that I could be in the woods hunting elk. Right.
And I want to make a statement real quick. I'm sorry to cut you off, but there's in some respects, that's the right path to be on. Right. And I want to make sure that this question isn't, or when we're joking with Joe about, sticking with that, there's a point to that. And it's not a slash or anything by any stretch of the imagination. I just want to be clear. I know you know that, but I want to make sure that folks that are hearing that understand that this is a group of guys. The majority of us go back and forth on the phone and text and DMs, things like that. So I just want to be clear so people don't think we're smashing on the old guy in here that he can't defend himself.
Listening to Joe talk and just in hearing about his success in the woods, I mean, him and I couldn't be more opposite on the gear part. Yeah. And look at his success rate compared to mine. That should speak volumes just about the wood. I mean, I hear Joe and I'm just thinking woodsmanship.
Yes.
Woodsmanship. And he reminds me of a killer out there, friend of mine, Trent Fisher from Born and Raised. He doesn't know what he's shooting. He couldn't tell you what arrow, barely what broadhead, sure as hell couldn't tell you what grain it is. And the guy's a straight up killer, right? I mean, and that's just, it speaks volumes to me. The guys that I know that have killed, some guys over 1,000 animals with a bow, some guys, a lot of guys less, obviously, but the biggest killers I've talked to, they don't care. They go out and they just get it done. And that's just echoing what Joe's saying there. And I'm really envious of the success you've had and sticking with it. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Joe, I have a question for you. So you've been using the same setup for the last 15 years, you said?
So other than I've been doing the same thing. The bow has changed out because I blew up a bow,
right,
like I said. And so I actually had to go to a different bow. And up to that point, I was shooting a Pearson spoiler for a while. I had shot Pearson Gray Ghost, and you're smiling up there, guys. You recognize that stuff, right? I started out with the old PSE Nova that was $104 off the rack up there. It was just about propelling an arrow and knowing how I could pick up your bow, Caesar, and in 10 shots, I'll be hitting because I learned the feel of your bow and I can adjust to that. Right. So,
but I guess the question I have is previous to you shooting the same bow for 15 years or however long, were you a tinkerer before that? In other words, did you get to the setup that you have because you came across a bunch of equipment you didn't like until you found the equipment you did like?
No, it came down to the piece of equipment that I could afford. Or at one time I was shooting for Pearson. So they sent me bows, right? So I would shoot their bow. And it came down to tuning my bow so that I was getting a punch and know that I was flying an arrow straight. And then from there, it was all on me to know what that bow was doing from 10 yards to 80 yards. And that's what I did. It wasn't anything about tinkering other than making sure the bow was punching a hole.
Right.
That's it.
Okay.
And then the rest came to me.
So Mike, take that same question away.
Yeah. So no, and I agree with, what Joe was saying there, and same thing. I mean, I mentioned before that, when I'm hunting elk, I want to eliminate as many variables as possible. And to me, the peep sight was one of those things that is a variable. I mean, how many of you have drawn back and your peep hasn't rotated all the way and you're sitting there with your lip or your tongue trying to turn it? Now, has that ever happened when there's an animal in front of you and it cost you a shot? So it's happened to me in the past, but then also too is, I turned 51 this year and all of a sudden, my eyes changed and in my sight picture just wasn't that great looking through that peep sight. And, I talked to a lot of people and they're like, well, you just need to go to a smaller peep. But then you want to open it back up when you're hunting so that, light can gather in. And I'm like, I don't want to be making all these changes. So, everybody's mentioned it, having confidence in your equipment. And the way you get confidence is by shooting that equipment and practicing with that equipment. Well, in archery, the way you increase accuracy is by repetition, doing the same thing over and over and over again. So if you're consistently doing the same thing with your front hand, if you're consistently anchoring in the same place and you're consistently doing all of those things, I was sitting there one time going, do I really need this peep sight? So I pulled the peep sight out and basically go to a 3-point anchor system. I shoot a thumb release. So I take my knuckles. They're right behind my jaw. I have a kisser button and then I have a nose button. So those 3 points are there all the time. It doesn't change the way I'm looking at the pin. Now, I've shot a single pin sight for so many years. With that single pin sight, you start getting 60, 70, 80 yards. You have to change your anchor just a little bit. And in fact, Dan with Trophy Taker, he has 2 different kisser buttons depending on yardages. So he changes his anchor point so that looking through the peep, as soon as I removed that peep sight out of the equation, I don't have to change my anchor point anymore with shooting a single pin. It now basically turns almost into a multi-pin sight that I get the single pin sight picture. And I'll tell you what, the sight picture on an animal, when you are not looking through a peep, there's no question. How many of you have been looking through your peep in a low light situation going, God, am I behind the front shoulder or am I in front of the back shoulder? Is he really broadside? Is he quartering to? Is he quartering away? And so shooting both eyes open, no peep, your target acquisition is faster so you can execute the shot. And, Guy, you've heard me talk before about aim small, miss small. And I do this small dot training with a dot at that big at 20 and 30 yards. I'm doing that on an elk. And with both eyes open with that sight picture, I can pick that tuft of hair. I can pick that clump of mud. And now my OCD kicks in and says, man, run that broadhead right through that clump. So, but no, for me, it was removing another variable, something that could affect my hunt out there. I mean, working hard to get that shot opportunity. I don't want something not turning and costing me that opportunity.
That's interesting, right? I mean, if I said, hey, show of hands, boys, if one of the variables could be removed, the last thing I'm going to think of, right, is my peep sight. I mean, that's just not something, at least at this point, right, that I would say I'm comfortable with saying, yeah, I'll take my peep off, right? It just, man, that is something else. But then I noticed that, you got your boy got his first bow, right? He's on the range with you now. So congratulations on that. But you're starting him without the peep.
Exactly. So because, and I think part of it goes back to, just like Joe mentioned, where I started in archery with a recurve and shooting instinctive. So those instinctiveness, they're ingrained in there. And so, if something happens, and just like, Joe said, a couple of my hunting partners, we have the same exact draw. So I can grab their bow and know that if I take their bow and still do the same things, in just a couple of shots, I'm going to be drilling with their bow. So if I have my bow blow up because I drug it through the mud like Joe did on his 4-wheeler and it blows up on me, I can grab their bow and hunt. But yeah, I wanted Knox to experience that. And, Liz, my girlfriend, got her started shooting, and I got her started on the small dot. Man, it's funny. We shoot 3-4 nights a week, and you can just see that OCD and the teeth clenching because she's not putting all 3 arrows in that little tiny dot at 20 yards. And so I joked with her, and I'm like, let's yank your peep sight out.
So she's shooting without it too?
No, she still has the peep sight in for right now.
Garrett, have you ever shot without the peep? No. You got it when you.
I would like to.
Yeah, I would say
when
you test that, you got to let us know how that goes, because I can see the wheels
I'll
turning.
tell you, I got a BTX that I don't really care about that much. I can just take the peep sight out of that.
So I will tell you a peep sight story happened this year. Gilbert Ornelas, great friend of mine. Gilbert out to 70, 80. He's just like, you guys that shoot that and tag them like that. And he has a bull broadside at 34 yards, pulls back, and his peep is turned. And there he is trying to turn it with his nose. It was a failure point. And he ends up letting this bull walk. And you only get so many opportunities, man. That only happens so many times out there. And when he comes to me, he's like, Joe, man, my peep turned around. I'm like, at 34 yards, and that was a problem, why didn't you drop that down a little bit and pop that puppy? Or, couldn't you look on the side of your peep? And we had that conversation, and I was like, you know what, Gilbert, I know that's going to be a problem because that was a failure point. And I know the next time if that happens, you will have practiced so without using your peep and found a way so that if that ever happens again, you're still going to be able to shoot that animal. And so we go back to camp. That's the first thing he's doing, is he's shooting and he's changing how he's looking to the side of his peep instead, and realize what he has to do for that to happen. So again, that's why, pins that get loose, that can happen, man. You got a peep that can twist on you. That can happen. You can have a release that goes off early on you. It's just those types of things that become those little failures that become huge in a season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that missed opportunity. I mean, it's a 10% game. You gotta try and stay out of that 99 somehow, or that 90 somehow, right? And I guess that lends itself to it.
I gotta say, man, that no peep thing seems really interesting to me, especially what you're saying with the 3 points, the kisser and the nose button. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, you think about it, right? It's all about your anchor. So what does it matter what you're looking through, right? So long as you're anchored in the right spot, same spot every single time, and you have the kisser and the nose button. I don't know. I'm intrigued.
And you can go to my Instagram page or Facebook page, at the Elk Calling Academy. And I posted pictures of my group. I'm getting groups like this at 50, 60 yards.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
With no peep.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
I might have to try that out.
Seriously. No, not me. I'll watch you when we're at the range and see how that goes.
All I'm saying is, if you're going to keep a peep, find out what you're going to do if it fails on you. Have that ability. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, so Mike, are you shooting a adjustable sight, Mike?
Yep. Still single pin.
It's interesting.
Me too.
It's very, very interesting.
And I get asked that a lot too. It's like, well, I don't want to sit there and range, and I don't want to adjust, and I don't. When I'm elk hunting, my single pin is set at 30 yards. And then I practice enough with Kentucky windage that I know where I'm going to hit at 20, and I know where I'm going to hit at 40.
Absolutely.
So I know exactly what is going to perform. And actually, in so many people, and I'll have this conversation, and they're like, I'm never going away from my 7-pin sight. And I'm like, oh, that's your choice. The reason I went away is because I didn't want all this group of pins coming in from the side. I want this vertical that I can run that vertical right up the back of the leg, and then I can set my pin. And honestly, my average shot on all my elk harvested is 22 yards. So why not open up that sight picture? Why not eliminate all those other things? So like I said, then I can find that tuft of hair that's out of place and drill that sucker.
The simpler things are the keep it simple, stupid type thing. And how many times have you heard somebody say, I shot the wrong pin?
Yep.
Yeah.
I've shot the wrong pin. And I've always encouraged guys, I'm like, there should be nothing that you're not able to kill with 3 pins. Nothing. And even by knowing how to gap those pins, man, I mean, it's you should be able to do that. You don't. Again, they're relying that it's like a crutch. I think it's more of a crutch event, or than anything. And I think a lot of those multiple pins come from guys that come from the hunting style where they get to be in a stand and they have all day to start finding and looking. And then you get a bull that comes in and he's on top of you before you know it, and he's screaming, and like Gilbert says, everything comes out your butt crack at that moment. Things can get a little bit dicey. So I think the more that you simplify your life as far as what's happening in your head, the better.
So I'm gonna drop the next one to Kyle and Jim. I'm interested to hear the contrast in this, and it kind of comes off of what Joe was just saying. Understanding your equipment, right? And I think to a point, there's going to be, no offense to Jim, but Kyle is going to have this mechanical engineer mind when it comes to this equipment and look at this thing and go, okay, this works like this, right? Jim is like me. It's practical use thing, right? Okay. Yeah. That kind of looks funny there, but yeah, I can shoot with the damn thing. So you guys take that one and understanding your equipment, and then how, Kyle, more so from you, how does that affect you as an archer, with that understanding of how the equipment is actually functioning?
Yeah. Did you want me to go first? I guess I could.
Go for it, man.
Yeah. Thank you. For me, like in general, life is that way. Like, I can understand things and I can groove with things better because I understand how they work. And so when I pull my boat back, I know exactly what's happening. I know what every feeling is to me. And as I pull back, I know what's going on. I know the stresses involved. I know that what's close, what's not, that kind of stuff. So, it was interesting. I thought you were going to ask me how I prep for going hunting. My answer is I buy a ton of arrows because I know the brush is coming. But and it's interesting too, like how differently engineers look at the world. It's complicated because if I don't understand it, then I have to, and that's with everything. We're talking, it's so interesting to hear you guys talk about things because, I mean, I'm not a huge hunter. If somebody said that I could go, this is blasphemy in this room, I'll get kicked out. But if somebody said you go hunting for a week by yourself, like here in Indiana, whitetail hunting by yourself for a week, or you could go to the range and I could have all of my, my lab radar. So it's not just the instantaneous velocity of the arrow, but I look at 100 points of data all the way up to 100 yards. So I do studies on arrow weight, veins, different veins. I've shot well over 30 different types of veins. I'm developing my own vein profile, and I've done probably 20 vein profiles that I've shot to get to where I am now. It's done, but it's getting molded. Anyway, so I've done studies like that with my lab radar. I made my own wind tunnel for arrows. So I could put any arrow in there. I could put any broadhead in there and it turns freely. And so I know, like I can get RPM measurements, one vein versus another vein versus 1 degree, 2.5 degree, 5 degree, 4 fletch, 3 fletch. What's the drag? What's the drop? How does arrow weight affect, velocity? How fast does it shed velocity? What's it look like? And so all those things are kind of going through my mind as I'm drawing back. And it doesn't make it as complicated as it sounds, but I just know what's going on. And so I can, like, I picture it as it's going on. It's not like I'm just pulling back and doing something. I know what's all involved and what's going on with it. So, I mean, even to hear like Joe talk, like I'm running computational fluid dynamics on my computer right now to study the vein profile that I made to decrease the drag of it. So my vein that's coming out is quieter than a Max Stealth and has better stability than any of the other veins out there. Mathematically proven, not like, I've shot 5 elk or something, or I've shot 8 deer with it. Like I could prove it mathematically that it's better than this one. But that's the things that's interesting to me. Like, you guys talk about, you don't like to fletch arrows. I love to fletch arrows. It's what I enjoy doing. It's relaxing. I love studying how arrow flight is affected. I like looking at, watching the wind tunnel. I like all that stuff. So for me, like I've been my big hunt is I go to Wisconsin once a year. I don't have access to a lot of land here in Indiana, and I honestly don't have time. Full-time job as a mechanical engineer and a full-time job building arrows for everybody. So it's good that I like what I do and am focused on it, because a lot of guys like you guys, it gives people a lot of confidence when they pull the bow back to know that some nerd somewhere in Indiana has done a lot of homework to figure out that, this exact angle is the best to shoot, period. It's like, yeah, would you like to hear me talk about veins for 3 hours? I easily could,
Garrett,
some of you guys really know the answer to that. Garrett knows, and
I got a question for you though. So does your vane provide as good a steering in the back as the Max Stealth, and is it easier to adhere? Because I'm sold if it is. Yes.
So this is the material. This is not the vane. Yeah. This is the material. And the answer is 100%, and I can mathematically prove it. It's quieter than the Max Stealth. It is more stable. Steering's a complicated task to discuss, and I don't want to dominate the podcast with the aerodynamics speak, but it is more stable than a Max Stealth on paper. If you go and shoot, it'll be exactly the same, but it's quieter than a Max Stealth. It's quieter than a Blazer. YouTube plug, but go to DCA Custom Arrows YouTube. The videos are horrible. They're short, but there's good data there. So check out the one with Saber on it, and you can hear the difference. Like a Max Hunter and a Blazer have what I call as a sizzle. So as it goes past the camera, you hear a and with a Max Stealth, you hear a and honestly, like I have another video out there where I shot 7 different vanes talking about noise. And I didn't really have a dog in the fight. Honestly, at the end of it, I say, I don't think vane noise makes a difference. Your bow is louder. But not to name drop, but when I was doing arrows for Donnie Vincent, he was like, they have to be quiet. They have to be quiet. And I was like, why is that? He's like, I'm out in Alaska. It's freezing cold. There's nothing out there. So every noise carries forever. And so I was thinking about that. And it's true. When you shoot your bow, that noise that your bow makes is a thump, and that could get something's attention. So it's like paying attention, but it's that arrow flight. If it hears that, then that's tipping you off. And then along with that, it's like, why not? Why not make it quiet? And I honestly, like how I got into building arrows, I just kind of started messing around with things, and I was like, well, maybe this will work. And then it became obsession for sure. Like the vanes are going to be
passion.
No, obsession. Passion is when you do it. Obsession is when you wake up 3 or 4 times at night with ideas that you have to write down or you can't go back to sleep. And I'm not joking. I think about it 24 hours a day. I do more rocket science than I do mechanical engineering now. Like literally I use programs they use to design rockets to design these vanes. Not joking at all.
So how far out are you on those?
They're going to be about 2 months. So, like I said, I have the material now. I'm happy with it. That's what I've been doing. Like I've been bending it and holding it and then checking to make sure that it's going back straight. Because I hate that. I hate that. The vane has to be perfect. It can't be good. It has to be perfect. So the material, remembering its shape, going back to shape, being able to bond really well, bonding to itself, maybe not using a primer pin.
Right. Thank you.
That's why we get along, my OCD brother.
So Kyle, going back to what I was asking you before we go to the gym. Sorry. So when the numbers of the matrix are falling down the black screen, right? As you're drawing back. So how does and I don't know how I have never asked you that question as much as we talked. How does that affect you as an archer, right? I know you kind of said it's not happening at the moment, but you're going through that. Now, does that have some weird play as you're going through that? Or it's like, okay, this calculation, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm hitting the mark.
Yeah. I think me pulling back and knowing that when I pull back, I know I've done everything right. My bow is set up perfectly. I've shot all the arrows. I've practiced. I've shot my broadheads. I know that this is the best arrow for the job. And so it gives me that confidence to be able to pull back and shoot. And I think a lot of people that buy my arrows feel the same way. I mean, they look really cool. They're with the wrap on them. They're very customized and all that stuff. And I think that gives people just that extra boost of confidence too. These are made by somebody that's a huge nerd in Indiana again. And, they know that I've done the math. This will work. All I have to do is put it on the pin. I don't have to worry about that. And I kind of think the same thing. When I pull back, I know what everything feels like. And when I put the pin on there and I know what that arrow flight's going to look like, I can picture it in my mind. And all I have to do, the funny thing is in high school, I raced go-karts with my dad for like 5 years. And I knew that the funny thing is about like getting nervous and stuff like that. I don't really get nervous anymore because all I think in my head is just do it right and it's done. And so if you have the tools and you, like you guys have said, you put in the time, your repetition, your consistency, it's all about consistency, your anchor, your everything, your arrows. If you have that consistency and you do it right, it's going to happen. And that's all I do. So I know that, I let it go. I know exactly what that arrow flight's going to look like. I know exactly where it's going to hit. And I don't get nervous about it. So
Jim, that was perfect, man. So let's Jim, take it, the same one. And this is, in my opinion, the contrast of the Matrix over there, understanding your equipment.
Yeah, man. He's Kyle's talking about like wind tunnels and shit. I mean,
that was like opening for Aerosmith, right?
I tell people I'm not smart. I'm just good at very specific things. I am not a smart guy, though.
No, actually you are, and that's, I think that's part of the contrast is guys like me need guys like you, right? Because I don't do the math on any of that. I just don't. I go, especially back in the day. I mean, I used to go elk hunting with Walmart arrows, and I'm not kidding you. And I just didn't think about that kind of stuff. I'd take them out and I'd shoot them and see where they were going, and it's funny, in my day job, we have to take these personality tests, and there's like 4 spectrums, and there's like this driver spectrum that I fall under. And then there's like this real analytical engineer type, detail oriented kind of spectrum, like that you would fall under. Right. And I think that everybody has those kind of personality traits, and what they need to do is understand what personality trait they are, and focus on the strength of that personality trait. Because I know that I am not going to sit down and engineer arrows. I know that that's not going to happen for me. Not smart. I have a hard time cutting my toenails. So when you're talking about, building arrows, that's a whole different thing. And so the contrast with that is every hunter, no matter what kind of personality trait they fall under, whether they're like Kyle, where they're super engineer focused and they're super analytical about things, or they're more like me, who is, just kind of dumb and walks into walls. Right. It is a situation that you have to know your strength and practice, and the contrast in knowing your gear that's what the contrast is. I think all of us, no matter what personality trait we are, if we're serious about hunting, we know our gear, we practice, we work at it, we know how it's going to perform. And sometimes, it's not. I don't think anything is foolproof. I don't care how great the arrows are and how great your bow is. I don't think everything is 100% of the time. I've had great equipment fail me. I've had really bad equipment outperform really expensive equipment. And so it's just it's a matter of knowing where those fail points are and where your personal weaknesses are, depending on whether or not it's a physical thing or just a personality thing. So I don't know if that answered your question, Guy, but that's kind of what comes to mind when we're talking along these lines.
No, it did for me. So Caesar, I'm gonna go with you on this one, right? And I think this will be interesting, and anyone that wants to chime in on this, right, just go ahead and chime in. When we're talking about, and Garrett hit on this, right, but I want your honest perspective, not influenced by anything you've heard, right? What have you done? How did you look at going into the pig hunt? You and I have talked, so I kind of know the answer. And then we had discussions going into deer season, and then our trip to Colorado for elk. When to be ready, right? When to be ready for season. If there's that level of tinkering, if that new gear presents itself, when to be ready. And we're talking archery, not fitness.
I mean, so is your question, how do you know when you're ready to go out
Well, we'll talk about that too. I was going to direct that question more to Chad, but I want you to talk about when to be ready. When should you be ready? If your season starts, our A zone starts in July. Right. When should you be woods ready? I'm ready to send that broadhead, and I want you to talk about your experience, because there's going to be some contrast there to what the other guys have said, and some of the vets on this.
I mean, well, the answer is you should always be ready. I don't know how that the reality of that is for most of us in regards to, like, you know, if we have day jobs and, you know, life at home and things like that, that may get in the way of that. But I mean, for me personally, you mentioned the pig hunt I went on last year. That was the first hunt I did. And, you know, I always shoot year round, sometimes more than others, but I always shoot. And when I found out that I was going to do the pig hunt, or when I kind of committed to going, you know, I was shooting all the time at home. Like, before work, I would go to the range and shoot, and then I'd go to work, and then I'd come home, and then I'd do that 5 days a week. And then I go to the range on the weekends. And then, you know, in regards to like, the arrows and what I decided to shoot, I started to get more in, or I started to think about more of maybe variety, right? Because I shot a certain type of arrow when I did the pig hunt, and then when I went on the deer hunt, I shot a different type of arrow, and that was just because, I don't know, I wanted to try something new. And then, I mean, I guess I don't want to be long-winded, but pretty much I think at the end of the day, you got to be able to put the arrow in the mark, and you know, whatever you need to do to get to that, that's what you need to do. For our elk hunt, I was really worried about that, because I don't know, you know, that's a big deal. For one, I wasn't sure if I was even going to get an opportunity, and if I did, I didn't want to blow that. So I was really nervous about that.
I'm gonna take it a little bit here, and I want Chad to respond to this. So Caesar was at the range, and Caesar and I met at the range. What do you think? 2.5 years ago,
something like that.
Mm-hmm. And this guy can shoot. Like I said, I mean, he is a phenomenal archer. And I don't care who you put him next to. The guy, well, yeah, we can get into that, but you know, in this room here, this guy could shoot. But when I said, hey, you know, we're talking, I'm like, dude, just go to Colorado with us, right? Just, you know, buy the tag, or if you just want to tag along, come on. You know, I don't know if even with the pig hunt, even with our early season archery deer, I don't know if I'm ready. And I'm like, dude, you've been shooting your bow for 4 years, right? For 4 years, you're dialing in. And I'm watching this guy die. I mean, literally, he's dropping dimes, right? Literal dimes out at 80 yards with me, right? Without flinching. And as I'm fatiguing, right, and I'm like, man, I'm going to take a break. This dude is still dropping dimes out at 80 yards. And it's just like, what are you waiting on, right?
I think I understand. I mean, yeah. So I waited 4 years before I went out to hunt, because I wanted to make sure that I was going to be ethical. That was my biggest, I mean, that was just
responsible.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And, you know, I know of some other people that, you know, hunt with a bow with only shooting it for like a month. And I mean, that's their prerogative. For me personally, like I knew when I started that I was going to make sure I was proficient in this before I went out and took an animal. And, you know, last year, that pig hunt, I shot that pig and I double lunged him. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a testament to that, but, you know, after that, I felt very confident in myself. And I mean, granted, you know, different animals, you know, they're all different to each other in regards to, I mean, you go into like an elk hunt, right? That's not shooting a pig, you know, so it's, you know, there's definitely the stakes are higher. So
is it? It's still a life, right? Albeit a 1,100 pound animal versus a 200 pound animal.
Think about the opportunities. Like you those come few and far between, especially for you and I that don't go. I mean, for me personally, I only been out once. And I don't know when potentially I'm going to go again, you know, and I don't know, it's just one of those things where if you need to make it happen, it needs to happen, or you need to be able to make it happen.
So Chad, with that, what with your, with backcountry rookies and everything, you get a lot of folks that are new into it. What do you tell them when they're in that position, right? When they're like, hey, I've been shooting my bow for, 2 years, or I've been shooting a bow for a year. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Caesar's decision to hold off, but what do you tell those folks? How do you advance their game so that they're ready to go and get into the woods?
Yeah, I think the first thing that they really need to do is make sure their TikTok account and Instagram account, everything's ready to go, so they
Didn't
can
happen
put
if
out
you don't.
those sweet dance videos. No, I tell people all the time, just go. Just get out and do it, because you can sit at that range all day, every day, and you can drop those 80-yard bombs and you can do whatever. But until you get out there and you hit that mountain, none of that woodsmanship that we've been talking about on here, none of that happens. And you don't ever learn how to do any of it. We could argue. I mean, we could talk about how fun it is. Kyle, you're over there in Indiana. I grew up in Indiana. I know it's fun to sit in a tree stand, right? And I know it's fun to shoot whitetails out of a tree stand, but there's just nothing like the lessons that you learn at 10,000 feet when you're climbing deadfall and you're just absolutely getting hammered out there. And I think that you just have to go. That's how you know when you're ready, right? When you put the gas in the truck and you go down the road and you hit the woods. If you're not, and I tell people this a lot, I talk about it a lot on the podcast. If you don't think that you're ready to engage at an animal, shoot an animal, then don't buy the tag. Go with your buddies that year and just learn woodsmanship, learn how to be in the woods. A lot of these guys that are coming out from out east have never slept in a tent at 8,000 feet or 10,000 feet. And then all of a sudden, because of that sweet TikTok account or whatever it is out there, these dudes are thinking they're going to hit the mountains and go 10 miles deep and they're going to stay 10 days. And they've never even slept outside in the backyard. So I think there's so much to learn just in getting outside and going out and just being part of it.
I do want to say that I would have gone out sooner, but the environment that I was in didn't harbor that. So in other words, I don't have any friends that hunt other than Guy, and I met Guy at the range. So I was trying to figure out how to go, and I knew I wanted to get my license, and I kind of made all those decisions and went through all of that on my own. And then when I finally met Guy and he was like, hey, you want to tag along? Yes.
Yeah. And there's a lot of really good organizations out there for mentorship, right? That teach people how to get out there and do it. There's a lot of people that get people involved, or jump on Elk Addicts or whatever, self-promotion, right? We have the Backcountry Rookies Nation, and there's so many people that go in Backcountry Rookies Nation on Facebook and they say, hey man, I don't know where to start. I don't even have a hunting partner. I'm thinking about going solo for my first year, right? Because they don't have that person to go. And it's amazing to me how many people will raise their hand and say, hey, come sit in my camp, man. Come sit around the same. Gerald, you say these kind of things all the time. Hey, come sit at our campfire, right? Welcome to the elk camp. And I think that there's a lot to be said. Nothing against you, Caesar. I'm not saying anything. I don't know you. I don't know anything about you, but a lot of people are scared to ask, right? I want to go hunting. Where do I start? You did the right thing. You picked up a bow and you went to the archery range. When you want to meet people that go hunting, where do you go? Right? You go to the shooting range, you go to the archery range, you go somewhere where you're going to be involved in those like-minded people. I don't typically look for hunting partners at Starbucks, right? It's just not how that works.
Right.
So I mean, they're probably there, but it's just not the environment where you're going to talk about those kind of things. So I think that there's a way to get into it, right? There's a way to be involved. And I think that's kind of where we got really lucky, and we hit a mark where we are able to kind of educate people through the Backcountry Rookies. It's appropriately named, right? We're out there as an educational piece for people to go and just listen and try to learn something. Every show we try to be somewhat educational. I don't know if we are or not, but we try.
So I'm gonna flip us real quick, right? Because I think Caesar and I have had this conversation, and I'm gonna just peel us back into archery a little bit, because there's a lot to talk about with it, right? And we can go through all this. But the one thing I do want to point out as we're into our hour and 45 minutes here, so I'll try and speed us up. If anybody needs to drop off, I understand totally. Is that with everything that's been said, right? Is get behind your equipment, spend time behind your equipment. Doesn't matter if it's, if it's new, if it's old, if it's somewhere in between, get behind the equipment. So we're going to hold off. Kyle, you're going to go last on this. And I don't care who chimes in first. I want to talk about the importance of trajectory in archery. I don't really hear it talked about. It's something that I actually practice. And I think in my opinion, it's hugely important. I'm sure Garrett has to practice in his Rosie Woods. If Mike's hunting North Idaho, he's having to deal with it. Jim's having to deal with it. So I'd like to talk about trajectory. Who wants to take the first stab?
What is trajectory exactly?
there it goes right there. I'll just give you a hint.
It's A squared. Glad there's an engineer in here. That made it easy.
Yeah,
that's where I call Kyle.
Well, okay. So the reason I bring it up, right, is because and I'm sure that we've all at some point have fallen victim to the speed thing when it comes to bows, right? And we have this this super fast bow, or we have this 84 pounder, and I want to put this much weight on it, and I got this 80-pound bow that's shooting an arc like this now because I want a 620, and no offense to anyone's weights or anything like that, but trajectory is huge for me. I have to know what my bow is going to do. I have to know in some of my country that I can thread that needle. If it's this big at this distance, I know where my arrow is going to be in that line of sight, right? And I'm not saying I'm a badass archer. I'm a decent archer. I think it's an important aspect of what we do. And I just don't hear the conversation when we hear speed and arrow weights and things like that in terms of trajectory.
So there's two things I want to touch on real quick, and I've had conversations about this, and I can't remember who talked about it earlier, but FOC. I mean, FOC right now is a huge thing, and you have people that you can't have enough FOC. And I'm looking at it going, okay, great. You have all this FOC, but what are you doing on the back end? What are you doing to make sure your arrows stay straight? You have all this FOC up front. You have a crosswind, and your back end is shifting. When your arrow hits the target, it's no longer in line. You're losing kinetic energy. You're losing penetration through that, because instead of that staying in that same trajectory, same plane, and it doesn't matter if you're shooting on a flat line or if you have a little bit of arc to your arrow. It's how your arrow is when it hits the target. Is it staying straight to continue to drive through, or is your back end so light that the wind's drifting it and now you're off angle a little bit and you lose all of that penetration and momentum? So the other thing is understanding your equipment. And Garrett did a great video. God, Garrett, was that 2 years ago when you did about shooting through windows in the brush, and you talked about how to use your pins to make sure that your arrows were.
That's actually what I was going to bring up. And
it's a great video. I mean, anybody that's new, it's like you want to know what your arrow is going to do. You want to know if you can make it through that window. Garrett did a great job on this video of explaining it and going, if you have a small window to shoot through, look at this. So, but again, understanding your trajectory and all of that stuff and how your arrow is going to go through that. And again, it's understanding and knowing your equipment and what's going to happen there.
So Garrett, take it away, since Mike dropped that video, and then drop the video so if folks want to check it out.
I don't even know what I called it. So
I'll look for it and put it in.
It was a while ago. I've got over 100 videos on there now. Long story short, first, I have something written down here. And Guy, this is shout out to you, brother, for taking, and I don't mean this anything against Caesar, but thanks for taking a risk on somebody you didn't know. I've done that a few times. It's bit me in the ass. And I think it's anybody that's tried it multiple times, they've probably been bit. And it sounds like Caesar's working out and he's on, I love where he's at. So thank you for expanding the sport and bringing somebody in, and especially somebody with, like Caesar. Good job on that.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate that.
So trajectory, that's a whole 2-hour podcast in itself, to be honest with you. So Mike brought up FOC, and I just start laughing because the more I hunt and the more I kill, and the more I talk to these guys that are absolute just killers in every sense of the word, they don't even know what their FOCs are. Yeah. Right. So I used to measure that stuff. I still measure that stuff because that's just who I am. But, I've been shooting 14% the last few years. I think a standard axis, 28-inch standard axis, 100 to 125 grain tip, you're about, with blazer vanes, you're about a 10% FOC on that, with a 9.5, 340, 9.5 GPI. So, I mean, that's getting a lot of kill. That's probably the number one arrow out there that kills stuff is around here, at least, is an Axis 340.
That's what I shot my pig with.
Yeah. An Axis 340. Most guys throw 100 grain tip on there. And the ones that I can convince to throw 125 grain tip on there might be shooting 10%. Most of them are shooting about a 9 to 9.5% FOC. And they're all going, I was shooting a PSE Carroll intruder when I started, and I was getting pass throughs at 70 yards with a 9% FOC, 10% FOC arrow, shooting 260 right at deer. So, that's a whole story that I think is it's an acronym. It's effing overcomplicated, and you just need to build. You just need to build a good arrow setup, and the FOC will be there. I'm going to leave it at that. For speed, for me personally, speed is I like the tunability of an arrow going about 280. I've since backed it down since I've been shooting about 500-ish grains. I shoot 480 right now, about 271 feet per second. And to explain what Mike brought up, the video, if you want to know if you're going to hit a tree or a limb, you have pins, probably 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever it may be. You can range that obstacle, preferably before the animal's there, right? A little bit of foresight goes a long ways. And when you failed as much as I have, you find eventually ways to succeed. You start ranging these things that are going to be an issue. And so if I have a limb that's at 40 yards and I draw back before that animal's there, right? I draw back and I'm aiming at 50 yards where I think he's going to come out, and my pin at 40 is on that limb, I'm going to smack that limb, right? So you can, with a little bit of foresight and planning and building your own failures, you can start to, find successes in scenarios where you would have hit that branch. And if you're not in the off season shooting through brush, viney maple here, there's cedar boughs, fir boughs, whatever it is. I shot through about a cell phone cord, maybe a little bit bigger than a cell phone cord of a limb, but I had shot through limbs, right? And I chopped that limb off, and I took 2 limbs that I'd chopped off in a video, and I smoked that bull at 17 yards. And I had 2 limbs that were, they were smaller than my finger here, about the size of that pin, but I had chopped those things off because I had chopped those things off on the way to my Reinhardt, 15 times before season, resharpened the broadheads, and those are the ones in my quiver. So trajectory shoot is, in my opinion, on trajectory, to sum this thing up, not to steal it from everybody, but shoot as heavy as you're happy with the trajectory. And so for me, that is, the happy medium. For everybody's different, but for me, I like to shoot no less than 260 just because it's just getting a little slow for what I like. Preferably stick around 270 to 280. And if I'm shooting something maybe like an antelope, I might I might build a special arrow for 290, but honestly, I'll probably just stick with a 275 grain arrow. When you drop down 20 feet per second and you shoot that for a year, that bull I killed at 81 yards 2 years ago, he didn't know any better. I mean, he didn't know my arrow wasn't shooting 280, right? And I didn't miss that trajectory. I mean, I didn't miss it. It was out in the middle of a unit. So, but I will say, if you're shooting stuff like in the coast, shooting a little bit faster is nice. If you're shooting second growth, 30, 40 year old timber, you're having a lot of these, trees that the shooting lanes close up the higher you get. That is nice to have. So, that's my spiel: is shoot is fat, or shoot as heavy as you can, as long as you're happy with the trajectory. Build a good arrow. The FOC will be there, and momentum. To me, momentum over KE is another one of my opinions, but that's that's a whole nother podcast.
Go ahead, JoJo.
So, again, it's a failure thing. And I've seen a lot of people it just all goes back to knowing your equipment, man. It's about that equipment being an extension of you, knowing what it's going to do. And see, I think a lot of people that think they're sometimes hunter ready because they're range ready, they're backyard rock star ready, but they haven't necessarily done the things to challenge whether they are hunter ready. They haven't challenged themselves with gear on. They haven't challenged themselves in bad conditions with wind coming from the left, wind coming from the right, so that they know how they react to that. And they haven't done it by trying to poke through areas where you might not think you can poke through. And I've seen guys like I love it in 3D shoots when they have the kill covered halfway there or 3/4 there so that you're not seeing the kill. And so many guys that will shoot over the back of an animal because they're thinking so much about, instead of their spot that they're shooting, they're thinking about the object itself, or they'll think about it so much that they'll hit that object instead of realizing that, with what I shoot, if that thing is covering the kill area, I still aim at the kill because I'm going to go over and drop right in and it's going to be a dead critter. So, that's where I think knowing your trajectory, I don't call it trajectory. I just go knowing what your weapon is going to do. And, if you do that, if you have shot it enough and you've gotten out there, you've shot off your knees, you've shot sitting down, you've shot leaning, think about all of those things that you are going to do in the field. And when you asked about how do you know if you're hunter ready, look, if I have any question in my mind, if I have any doubt in my mind about where I'm shooting right now, and I don't mean as far as, where I'm pegging, but if there's anything feeling a little bit off and I go out there, I'm not ready. That's going to rock your confidence. And guys, it all comes down to confidence when you're hunting. It all comes down, and that confidence comes from all of that preparation. It comes from all of that putting yourself in the uncomfortable positions to get comfortable. You be ready if your peep sight twists on you. Be ready, if all of a sudden you go to, get that kisser button in and it's not there. What are you going to do? Are you going to freak out? Well, you still have another point of contact, right? You just stay right in your game because you practiced that. So, a trajectory is huge in that it opens your ability to know what you're going to do to make a shot, whether it's 20 yards, whether it's 30 yards, whether it's 70 yards out there. You might be shooting over top of something, and underneath something else that's there. You just understand that because you've done it so much. I just think the whole thing is about comfort, knowing, knowledge, and this is just the shooting part, man. We've talked about gear all this time, and we're talking about investing in knowing that piece of equipment. And I think you can give some guys a doggone spear and they could get out there and kill an elk because they know how to get up on an animal. They understand the animal. They understand the environment. Their woodsmanship is so good. They just have, they have that knowledge factor. They have improved themselves as a hunter. I can hand any of you a hammer and say, go build a house, right? But if you don't know where to start and you don't know how to put all that together, you can have the best equipment in the world. I can be shooting Kyle's arrow and I could be shooting it on Caesar's bow that I know that guy's going to produce the best arrow. He's going to have that bow tuned in. That's just the type of guys they are. They're passionate about that. But it doesn't matter if I have not worked with my equipment, because now even the equipment might be great, but I become the failure point, right? So, I think your trajectory, as far as whatever that weight's going to be, I could not tell you what grain I shoot. I have no clue. I know that my arrows punch the way I want them. I know I'm shooting a 125 head on there. I shoot 70-pound pole, and I shot a bull this year at 60 yards, couldn't find the arrow. I mean, it just zip. I do know that I'm going to be mid-body, 3 to 4 inches back behind that crease, and I'm going to get 2 lungs, and I'm going to put that critter down. So, I mean, again, I'm taking it a little bit further. I just think we spend so much time worrying about the equipment, we don't spend enough time on preparing the hunter part.
Bingo.
Okay, so I'm going to, and just because Kyle, we said trajectory, I want Kyle to touch in on trajectory, but I'm going to spin off of what Joe just said, and I got something for Chad and Jim, and then whoever else chimes in after that.
Do you want me to go now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you guys have seen me on the whole time.
The Matrix, buddy.
those are the conversations that I have. I'm a very plain person, but you guys touched on a lot of things. I just want to touch on what Joe said, which is extremely important. And people ask me, how can I shoot better? How can I shoot better? You could shoot more and you will shoot better. It's a good example of it is a basketball player. You give, an excellent basketball player, an excellent shooter, a ball, and they don't say, how much force do you put on that ball? I shoot it and I know where it goes. It's like your equipment. And I'll get into kind of what I do that's a little bit different, but like with Joe, he knows his equipment. He doesn't, it's like knowing your best friend and calling him by his nickname his entire life and not knowing his name. You don't care. My friend from college is Diggs, and I call his house and I'm like, is Diggs there? And she's like, who? And I'm like, Mike. I have to think of his first name, but it's knowing your equipment, knowing when you release that ball that what that trajectory is going to look like, how it's going to fly. That's the important thing, I think, with it. And there's FOC as a whole. We're going to get back on that one, Guy. When my veins come out, Guy and Garrett, I want to be on to talk a lot about stuff. I've talked to people that have called about arrows. I've talked to them about FOC for like an hour and a half. I don't even know if they were still on the phone when I got done. There's a lot of misconceptions with that. It's really, 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 really bad. Most important thing that you can do is have an arrow that's flying true. It's not too weak. It's not too stiff or to be unforgiving. Michael, you talked about the tail end whipping around and stuff. The most important thing, though, is with trajectory and arrow spine and getting that correct stiffness. When that arrow hits, if it's flying at whatever trajectory it's coming in, this way or this way or this way, if that arrow is slightly bent, so it's flexing too much, when it hits something, that center of gravity, if it's offline of the trajectory that's coming in, it's going to do this and bend up. And arrows bend like crazy. So when it hits something, automatically you're losing that trajectory because the momentum, that center of gravity, is going out of line with the arrow. As that goes in, you're basically trying to drive like a bent nail into an animal. When it gets in there too, it's going to start curving in the animal. And it doesn't take a lot to lose. It doesn't take a lot to lose a lot of that energy. So what I do as far as trajectory and weight and FOC and all that stuff, I look at it all. It's a 3-legged stool, but the most important thing that I do is figure out the exact stiffness of the spine based on the spine of the arrow, the length of the arrow, the weight I put in the front, all that stuff. I balance the arrow with that. That's the most important thing to me. FOC, like Garrett was saying, if you build a good arrow, it's going to solve itself. I try to keep it above 12, but if it's 10, it's not that big of a deal. It's having it in front of it. And just in rocketry, you have your center of gravity first, and then you have your center of pressure behind it. And knowing where all that stuff is at and being able to optimize that stuff, that's more important than knowing, the center of the arrow. The arrow doesn't care where its center is when it's flying. It's not a point that affects the dynamics of how it flies. But like with me, with my builds and all that stuff and figuring out the trajectory, I have a way to estimate, sit back. I have a way to estimate the potential energy of your bow. And so when you draw your bow back, you're actually storing potential energy in that bow. When you push your release or let go with your fingers, Joe, you release that potential energy into that arrow. So you have a fixed amount of potential energy based on your setup. And that's why I ask people about their IBO and their draw length, their draw weight, what bow they're shooting, all that stuff. I take all that into account and estimate the potential energy you have. And then I figure out how to optimize that potential energy to kinetic energy of the arrow transfer. I'm not big on kinetic energy either, but it's a way for me to make sure that I'm getting as much energy as I can behind that arrow and getting all that weight transferred. If you don't transfer all that potential energy into kinetic energy, you hear people at the range and it's like, bang, that energy goes into something. It goes into the vibration of the arrow or the bow. And so that's what all the noise you hear. If you have too heavy of an arrow on there, you're not getting all of the trajectory that you can with it. And usually you're leaving a little bit on the table. I'm not like a super heavy arrow kind of guy. It's like, somebody mentioned 270 and 280 is a good number. And I ask people, how far do you shoot? That's on my form for my website. It's how far do you shoot? The reason I ask that is because guys out west shoot further than guys in Indiana. If I shoot 80 yards in an animal, I have to go through 3 trees to get there. But out west, that might be a second shot, So out west, you need a faster arrow. But I look at that, how much potential energy do you have? And then how can we get there? So it's like, you can say, I want to shoot 150 yards. And I'll say, we got to have a conversation about that. With your setup, you're looking about this range. If you want to change that, here's some things you could do, but you don't need to shoot super fast. You need to have a good trajectory. I think 270 or 260 is good because that way, if you're 30 yards out or 35 yards out, it keeps you from dropping too much. Also, if you're shooting through obstacles, it gives you a flat enough trajectory to be able to hit windows and not have to, catch 2 or 3 feet of drop. Like I shoot, my arrow is 450 grains. I know from all my testing with arrow weights and stuff like that, how fast it will shed velocity. It'll shed roughly 35 feet per second. That's the deceleration of my arrow at 100 yards. So for every second that it's in the air, it's going to lose 35 feet per second. But if you go heavier, then you shed less weight, but your overall velocity could be lower because you start lower. You lose less, but you start with less. So to sum it up, yeah, shoot a good trajectory.
I got a question for you. Have you
look at Michael. He didn't have pants on.
Listening to you talk here and me being a tester kind of guy, I'm thinking you gave me inspiration to test the impact paradox and what would be the perfect FOC to get the best impact paradox when it actually hits an animal too. Because if you're way too low of I built 5% FOC arrows just for fun. But your impact paradox is absolutely going to suck. So have you tested anything there, or is there a good FOC to get the maximum amount of, or the least amount of impact paradox?
What do you mean by impact paradox?
So the flex of the arrow as it hits the animal.
That's built into the flex of, so what I look at is the dynamic spine versus the static spine. Mm-hmm. And so static spine being, if your arrow says 300 on it, if your arrow says 300 on it, these are 400. But if it says 300 or 400, this is for everybody else. Garrett knows this. You put 2 pins 28 inches apart, and then you put a roughly 2 pound weight in the middle of it, and it'll deflect, 0.300. This is a 400. This is actually Aaron Snyder's wife's arrows, but it'll deflect that much. The dynamic spine is when you hit that release and it pushes on that. So when your string starts pushing on that arrow, your arrow doesn't want to move initially. And the things that affect that are the weight of the arrow and the weight at the point of the arrow. So as you try to push it, I tell people, I've said this on the couple podcasts, but if you try to push a bowling ball with a pool noodle, you can't do it. It'll fold up. If you try to push a baseball, you could do that. And that's the same thing. That's just affecting the spine of the arrow. So for me, what I've seen is having a true flight with an arrow. So having it, I kind of have a rough idea of the spine that I want. Actually, I have a very good idea of the spine that I want to get perfect flight. And if your arrow is flying good and you have good groupings with your arrows, consistent groupings with your arrows and tight groupings with your arrows, then it's not flexing too much. Because if it's flexing too much, what it's doing in flight is doing this, and it's also rotating. So you can actually see doing this, and it'll be grouping big. That means that you're getting too much flex with that arrow as it's going. It's wandering. So it's going this way, it's going down. And then when it rotates and it goes out and then it goes up and then it goes out, and then they all hit and you get a big, shotgun group. It's easy to see people that have arrows that are overspined versus underspined, because if you shoot like a seriously underspined arrow at a distance where you can get a decent grouping for everybody, that's different. But, if you could shoot, it's 60 is kind of your range, shoot that then. See where you can get good groups and bad groups. And people that shoot weak arrows get shotgun patterns that are just scattered. If people that shoot too heavy of a spine of an arrow have a good group, and then they'll have like one outlier, and it won't be a consistent arrow. If you mark your arrows and like you go out and you start shooting and you're like, okay, number 3 is always out, then you're, get a better arrow builder. But you can DCA custom arrows always spine aligned. But you can see which groups are what. And I've caught people. I've been like, walking out to the range, I don't talk to anybody unless they ask for advice, or if we're just talking and they ask a question, because I don't like to be that guy. But I can watch people shoot and be like, I know what's wrong with that dude. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say anything, but I have a good idea. That, and there's just new guys there, and you need some time to go shoot and get comfortable with it. And you don't need somebody telling you what you're doing wrong all the time. Sometimes you just got to get into it and keep doing it and get that repetition down and find your flow, find your jump shot, get your Jim Furyk swing out and make it weird and make it work. It's consistency. Consistency is 100% the key. And that's why with my arrows, the heaviest to the lightest arrow, I built some for the catching deers guys. I built 48 arrows, and 24 of them were Black Eagle Renegades. And the difference between the heaviest arrow and lightest arrow in 24 arrows was 1.6 grains. And that's fully built and spine aligned and everything like that. So they're deadly consistent. And so getting that consistency, but like Joe was saying, and like Michael was saying, if you're not consistent with your shot placement and your anchor, and you're not consistent and you're not doing the same thing over and over and over, it doesn't matter. You have a really nice car that you can't drive. So getting behind the wheel, driving it is key.
So you need a t-shirt, Kyle. You need a t-shirt that says arrow guy on the back, and on the front it says, ask me, I know what's wrong.
The rain shirt.
Yeah. So my buddy Josh Stud got me a shirt that says Arrow Wizard.
All right. So I'm gonna, and another one that you hear a lot, right? So, as we have that animal in front of us, some of us are jitterers. Some of us get respirations that appear to be hyperventilation. That's me, right? At draw, I don't care what it is, man. Everything from here to my anchor points and everything is rock solid. Man, my respirations go flipping crazy. I've seen guys like this jittering at draw. Jim, I'm not sure. I can't see you, so I'm not sure if you're sitting there or if it's just your logo there. So I want Chad and Jim to talk about checking the fever, we'll call it. How do you guys control the fever?
Yeah, I can go first on that. I don't really have that fever. I've been put in way worse situations than having an animal put in front of me. And there's none of that stuff really bothers me. So I don't get it. I don't know that I've ever been super shaky at full draw. It's not really a thing. I think practice and just being proficient with your, and comfortable with your entire shot process. I mean, that's got to be a key, but I don't know. Is it even possible to shake that if you're a nervous shooter like that? Is it possible to shake it?
I think there's a hit of adrenaline that comes, and controlling that hit of adrenaline is, to each their own. Some guys are great at it. Like for me, it's respirations, but you put me behind a rifle and I'm the shaky guy, right? Yeah. But I'm steady shot, So I think that hit of adrenaline is what does it. I just, I just eat up having that animal in the sights. But, Cool Hand Luke over here, I shouldn't even ask him the damn question.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just I guess I don't know. There's been a lot of training that's gone on and put in a lot of real life situations that, like, I'm not really that elk's not shooting back, so I'm not that concerned about it. I don't know. Maybe Jim's got something better for you.
Jim's been dumping off here and there. Washington or Idaho has a really bad signal for some reason.
I'll ask the question to everybody else, because is there something, like, for the guys that do have that buck fever or bull fever or whatever you want to call it? Is there anything that you can do in this? I would think it would be more like a worse thing in the shot itself. I've been a little shaky before I've drawn my bow back, but when you draw back here in that moment, I'm pretty calm and collected. Is there something you do to calm yourself down in the shot?
Something that I've done before I went on one of my hunts, like, I was going out with a bunch of guys that I didn't really know that well at the beginning. I'm really good friends with them now, but I would go to the range, and luckily my range has a lot of different targets. So they have, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And I would go and I would stand at like the 20. I'd have, like a target set at 10, my own target, and then I'd have different ones out there. And what I would do is just kind of in my head, I would draw back and then 20, and then I'd turn and shoot at 20. And then I'd draw back. And as I was drawing back, I would pick my next one, and then I would turn and I would shoot at that one. And it was trying to get it as quick as I can and how fast I could hit it. And so it was, again, knowing your pins and practicing with your pins. That way, when you're put in that stressful situation, it's at 30. That's it. That's what you've been practicing. And a lot of guys that are in the military, I think they do that as well. Putting yourself in stressful situations, doing push-ups and that kind of stuff. And your arms and legs, I race mountain bikes too, and your arms and legs would just go, they'd hit the gun and your body would just turn to jello, man. I mean, it was so weird, and your breathing would just go away. But once you got going, it would be easier. But I think just trying to put yourself in those stressful situations so that when you're put in that, you're said, it's at 30, you know what to do. It's like muscle memory kind of thing. You're automatically into it.
Yeah. That's something I do at the range a lot too, is when I'm practicing and I'm shooting, I'll do 20 or 30 push-ups, or I'll do a 100-yard dash to get that elevated heart rate. And I think if you practice it, a lot of people don't even think about it, but if you practice getting your breathing under control and you practice muscle fatigue and drawing at muscle fatigue, there's I don't know. It's all muscle memory. The more you do it, the more you're going to be used to it and be ready for it.
So Jim, if you've ever listened to our podcast, we've got like our two Venezuelan mafia guys talk about the Veralaques all the time, and that's what they're talking about. Is they just would get so excited, and that was something we had to really deal with Luis early on. And there's a couple of things. There's two different things that I want to talk about. One, like if you want to feel that same kind of pressure, is I tell these guys, look, 3D shoots are awesome, but what I tell guys do is, I want you to go to a 3D shoot, get with a group that, man, these guys are really hot, and get in there and just start talking crap like how friggin' great you are, and you're going to smoke those dudes, man. Watch me. Are you ready for this? And I mean, just really put that pressure on yourself, to feel that and to be able to take that. That's one way of doing that. The other thing that I look at is I hear guys, and here's the situation. You'll hear this. Well, it happened so fast, I didn't get a chance to get excited, get nervous, right? Or there's just the opposite of the spectrum, was it took so long for him to come in. I'm watching him the whole time that I was ready for it at that time. There seems to be like this kind of medium thing in there where they see the animal, it's not happening quick, and they get to realize a few things, and everything starts to take over in their body, right? And what I've tried to tell people is, have you ever noticed those same exact people that after you have, let's say that you filled out a tag, and then you're out there with somebody else and you're calling, and now you have the biggest bull ever come in that you're calling, and you never get nervous, man. It's like you're watching this and you're taking it in, you're looking, and you're going, how friggin' cool is this? And you're looking at parts of the animal, you're checking him out, you're watching how he's moving, you're watching his ears, you're learning about that animal. And so it's been two opposites, when you put that self-imposed pressure on yourself ahead of time. And I understand there's guys that want to make sure that they make an ethical, clean kill. So they feel that kind of pressure. Again, that comes down to that confidence thing. But what I try to tell people is change your mode, man. Change your mode when that animal's coming in to the same way as if you've already tagged out. Use it as a learning moment. Look at how cool it is. Watch the animal. Look at how the animal's using its ears and its head. Start looking for your shooting lanes. Prep yourself, man, so that you've got this, and this. If he goes that way, this way, what's the wind doing? Where am I at with that? Is there anything else happening around? Looking for those twigs that are in places. Involve your mind, because you're in the red zone, and it takes you away from thinking about your own capabilities, man. Your capabilities are there. You've prepped for that. So what you have to do is you have to put yourself in the moment that you are there and give yourself those things. And for some people, they have to have a checklist, man. They have to have a checklist of what they're doing. And when they have that procedure, it really makes them comfortable. Some people are really comfortable that way. And so if you're telling yourself, okay, animal, right? Shooting lanes, going right, going left. What am I ready for here? Do I need to move to a side? Am I going to have to slide over? What branches do I have in my way? Where's the wind at? Is he going to hit that? What if he circles downwind? So you just start solving those problems, and it takes a lot of that other stuff and puts it in a different place. And then you're going to shoot that animal. And heck yeah, you're going to Batiste it, man. You're going to fall apart all over the place, and which is cool. I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, when you stop feeling that, man, inside here and what it's all about and what you've just accomplished, you might as well be done with it. And I've heard people say that, but at the same time, when you become that efficient killer, if it's about putting that food on the table and your job is to go put it in, you almost see it as a job instead of a recreation. There is that level of that for some people, man, that they're able just to see it as that, go get it done, do the process and move on, I don't know. Is that what you're looking for, Guy?
I'm looking for whatever answer. I mean, the biggest thing with all this, guys, right, is to have these different perspectives, but then we all fall in line from, the guys that have been shooting, 30 years to the guy that's been shooting 4 years. Everybody's falling in line with the same end result, time behind the bow, confidence, things like that. And that's what my hope of this episode was, to be honest with all of you guys, right? Is because there's so much information out there. And where does a guy start? Or if you got somebody that's trying to increase their archery knowledge or increase their ability, where do they start? How do they pick it apart? Every one of you guys has done an excellent job in displaying your process through what you said. So yes, that was exactly the answer in my own long-winded version. I don't want to ignore Mr. Jim Huntsman. So I love it. Caesar and I getting ready for season last year. We're back at 70, 80 yards. Shot breaks. I'm like, it's hitting. That's a fucking dime, right? That level of confidence when the shot breaks, Jim, that's what I want you to talk about, right? Because it's so important to know that you are hitting that mark. Screw a target, screw the foam. When that animal is in front of you, that shot, in my opinion, I am not squeezing this unless I know that shot is going to hit that mark.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you put it pretty good, man. I mean, I think that it's super situational when you're talking along those lines. I'll give you a really good example. When I'm calling in an elk and I'm bugling and that elk is bugling and we're screaming in each other's face and there's all this adrenaline and we're focused on that part of it that just makes my, that's what makes my clock tick, right? And so I don't get shaky when I've got a bow drawn on a big screaming bull elk. I get shaky after the arrow flew. And then I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I just went through that. Now you take that situation, compare it to sitting in. I took my girls out this last season we sat in a deer stand, and we're waiting for a whitetail to come in, and I noticed the buck first, and then my girls saw the buck, and he's coming in real slow and cautious, and I noticed myself, I'm getting a little bit shaky because there's really nothing else to focus on. I don't have any control there. I'm waiting for the buck to come in, right? And so that situation is super dependent on what's going on around you and what you're focused on. I was in the Marines, and in the Marines, they're very big on your ability to shoot and going through the qualifying rounds to become like an expert rifleman. And how you train on the range is totally different than how it actually shakes out in combat. I was also in Iraq. And so the way that you shoot in combat is completely different than you're shooting on a range at Camp Lejeune or Camp Pendleton, California. Right. And so that situational awareness and being focused on the actual, the mission and the target, I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but it is a situation that if you are one of those people that get really nervous as the shot is about to take place, I feel like you're not focusing enough on the mission part of it. And I don't mean to sound like, in a militaristic way, but the mission is you've got a screaming bull elk in front of you, man, focus on that thing. What do you got to do? Do I need to pull my bugle tube and scream over my left shoulder to bring him around some brush? Do I need to drop my bugle and draw? Do I need to, what do I need to do at this point? And that focus on what is going on around you is going to take your mind off of the jitters that can come out of, you felt like you just drank an espresso as you're drawing your bow, right? And that's going to take that off. If you're really focused on where you want to put that arrow and what you want the end result to be, instead of, oh man, there is a 700-pound screaming horse with giant swords hanging off his head in front of me. You know what I mean? That's, I think, the difference. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely, man. So we're into this 2:30, and I could keep going. I'm not on a time constraint, but I realize you guys got things. So I'd like to just go around, get a final comment from each of you guys, direct it however you will. And then for the gentlemen that have platforms, please drop those platforms so folks can jump on and experience the good you guys are doing. So we'll start with Mr. Gilly. I'm going to work from left to right as I see it on the screen. So Mr. Gilly, if you could, please.
So you can find anything that we do on elkbros.com. And we have our podcast, which is Blue Collar Elk Hunting Podcast, which is all kinds of free content. If you are somebody that wants to pay for content, you can either find it through all of our podcasts, or you can go to our Blue Collar Elk Academy and our base camp, and you can purchase that, and everything you get in 40 years of my knowledge inside that base camp. The difference is on that is I do things just a little bit differently. I do it in my coaching style and my coaching methods that I've used with athletes, kids, sports teams over the years, and the way I do that. And it's very different from a lot of things that you're going to see out there. It's actually taking that pyramid where you build all that knowledge and you come up to the point of killing an elk, and I flip it upside down. And I just have this concept of, all of us at one point in time, we can do everything wrong and we can end up with an elk in front of us. And it's like that dog chasing the car. What are you going to do with it when you catch it, right? So that's my process. And hopefully it's something that relates well to. So you can find that. You can find our podcast. You can find our YouTube videos. Just go to elkbros.com.
Cool. Mr. Weaver.
So On Point Podcast, available wherever podcasts are available. I self-titled my YouTube channel because I couldn't think of anything. So it's Garrett Weaver. Super clever. So a lot of bow shooting tips, tricks, tactics, gear reviews, and the podcast covers a lot of what, guys covers. And I'm sure Jim and Joe's and Chad's, and, we all overlap some little bit, but we all have different interviewing styles, and we all have different guests and stuff. So, yeah, if you got some extra time to kill, check it out. I'm extremely available. I tell my wife that all the time. I'm extremely available. And if you get a hold of me on Instagram, On Point with Garrett Weaver, I usually am like pretty snappy at getting back to you. And I literally, my title or my bio on the Instagram is sharing my passion for bow hunting and helping people along the way. And I really do take that to heart. I try and help as many people as I can. And seems to be direct messages seems to be the way that people choose to do that. So, I appreciate you, Guy, for setting this up. You did a fantastic job hosting this thing, man. Very impressed. And it was an honor to be able to share this room with everybody else here.
Appreciate that, man. I appreciate the time. Mr. Riker.
Yeah. So parting thought is we have hammered this home, I think, throughout this podcast, and it's spend time with your equipment, especially archery. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about archery. I preach it a lot on the podcast where I just say, I don't care what it is. If it's a new piece of gadget, technology, mapping software, the SOS button, the Garmin InReach, just understand how to use everything that's going with you out to the woods. And I'll circle that back to the, when do you know that you're prepared? Because that, to me, that just knowing how to use whatever it is that you're going to use when you go to the mountain is going to make you as prepared as you're going to be, right? You can only be so prepared. Practice. We're backcountry rookies anywhere you want to try to find us. We got a terrible YouTube channel, an okay podcast, trashy website. We're out there, man. We're out there. Come and find us. So I appreciate.
I love your show, man. I love your show.
Yeah. Man, I can't say enough good things about everything that everybody on here is doing too. So appreciate you having me. Appreciate everybody's time.
Absolutely, man. Mr. Caesar.
Well, first, I'd like to thank Guy for having me on the podcast. I definitely feel like I've taken away a lot from all of everyone's experience here because, I've been pretty quiet because I've been listening. And that's, the other thing that I'd like to say is I think that, at the end of the day, it's all about practice. And I'm still very, very new. But I hope to learn more in the woods. And at the end of the day, like it's time behind the bow and it's time in the woods. And that's what my takeaway has been in general, hanging with Guy and being here with you all and just, following all the platforms I follow. So, I'd like to thank Guy again. Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me on the podcast, number one, but thank you for also in some ways, taking me under your wings, and I'm grateful for that. So I hope to talk to every one of y'all again at some point. And
we hope I'll be sending them guys pictures, man, with an elk this year.
You want to come up to Oregon and shoot a bear? Right. We got too damn many of them. So
I'd love to. Hell yeah, let's do it.
Michael.
Yeah.
First off, I mean, the panel that you've put together here, this is incredible. The resources that people have just right here and in the resources that are available to them, take advantage of those resources. In fact, I kind of need to practice what I preach sometimes about taking advantage of that. So yeah, I'd like to order a dozen arrows, please.
Sorry. Do I know you?
Never mind.
Is this Garrett? Is this Garrett Weaver?
That's great.
The resources that are here and the resources that are available to people that can help them shorten the learning curve. And I admire and respect each and every one of you and love what you guys are doing to pay it forward and give back. So as far as my platform, it's elkcallingacademy.com. It's that same thing, elkcallingacademy.com on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok.
Yeah.
You got a TikTok?
You're on TikTok?
I was debating whether I was going to
hope that's true
out there or I mean, was I going to throw TikTok or was I going to throw the fans only? I mean, which route was I going to go here? So
that one I'm not surprised.
yeah, and then,
Oh my gosh.
elkcallingacademy.com. We over at elkcallingacademy.com, we got that mastermind group that has, kind of take the lessons and everything from the 30 plus years of mistakes that I've made out in the woods, and just kind of give that to the mastermind group. Every 2 weeks we do live Q&As just for that mastermind group, and just switched over to a new live stream platform. In fact, I reached out to Guy, and I have that ability now to bring guys such as yourselves in, and you can remote in on this live stream right from where you're at and just kind of share experiences and journey and that kind of fun stuff. But Guy, is always extremely humbled to be a part of this and to receive the invite, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother. Appreciate it. Kyle.
Yeah. So again, Guy, thanks for pulling everybody together. It's a fun crew, man. And it just reaffirms everything that, hunting people are good people. Like, there's no joke about it. I didn't know a few of the guys that are on here, and, I've been more than impressed. I've learned a lot, and they're just good guys. And there's something to be said for that. Just in general, just being a good person is a good skill to have. I try to instill that in my kids, but thanks for having us on. It's good to see some of the old friends and make new ones. DCA Custom Arrows. I got the website, and I got a website, Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of fun stuff.
Can you say the website a little slower, Kyle? Because it just flowed together for me. What is that?
Yeah. DCA Custom Arrows.
Thank you.
Yeah. So DCACustomArrows.com. And then Instagram, DCA Custom Arrows. You can see a lot of the stuff on there. All the stuff that I post on there, all the, how the wraps look, and they all look. I'm not an artist, but I kind of get lucky sometimes. But the main thing that I focus on is the math, and I just love doing that. So I have a bunch of new products that are going to be coming out this year. Some that I already did. So I got some points that I've done. They're called subsonic, but and they're aerodynamic and all that stuff. But the other nice thing is they're rounded, so you can't poke yourself with them. You can't rip veins off or anything with them. But I'll have other stuff. The veins are coming out. And I'll keep all that stuff up to date on Instagram. I'm behind on emails. I have 2 full-time jobs right now, plus I'm a dad and a husband and everything. So life's a balance, but I'm way behind on emails. I apologize to everybody that's submitted some, but it's a good community. And I think, like everybody said, practice. That'll get you better. And everybody should be nice to each other, man.
And because you didn't bring it up, so Kyle has a VAT, right? It's a vein alignment tool.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That thing has been money for me, building my veins and testing different offsets. So it's worth every bit of the $10.
That was a great idea.
Yeah.
So this is it. So this allows you to align your Bitzenberger jig so that you can get my hat in there too. So you can get it exactly right, and you can get anything on here. On a bits, you'll probably get, 5.5 degrees. I'll tell everybody that I fletch everything at 2.5 degrees. That's where I found with my testing that you get optimal performance. No parachuting, good grouping, no wandering, that kind of stuff. But yeah, the vein angle tool is cool. It's all the stuff's available on my website now. And anything you guys do, it keeps me going, and it keeps me working on products that are coming out. And, people ask me all the time, do people care about veins? Why do you have a wind tunnel? That seems stupid. It's just an arrow. Great. I don't care. I love it. And if anybody can benefit from it, then that's great. I do it for my own kind of curiosity, to be personal about it. But there's people out there that like to do this stuff, and there's people out there that kind of dig what I do. So I appreciate all those people.
Heck yeah.
Awesome.
Mr. Huntsman.
Michael, do you want to talk about your hat situation that you got going on?
He thought it was a decoy show.
Yeah, you weren't here earlier. It's Jim. It's the Hearing Enhancer 5000.
My goodness,
he's got a video for it on his TikTok channel.
I don't want to see that one. That's weird.
That one's over on the So
I don't know if there's a pants version and a no pants.
I challenge you to kill an elk with that on your head this year.
Yeah, I would challenge you. I like Garrett's idea, man. I mean, wearing your Depends on the wrong side of your body.
Here's something over there.
I appreciate you having me on there, Guy. This has been a lot of fun, and everybody on here. I mean, Caesar, it was great to meet you. You guys, some of you I haven't met. Garrett, I'd love to get you on my show to talk about the woodsmanship thing, because my podcast, the Western Huntsman podcast, is kind of focused on that aspect of it. Like we've talked a lot of gear and things along those lines that I'm not super technical about, but where my show focuses is on that kind of thing, the woodsmanship, how to read a mountain, how to get in front of a bull elk, and how to locate elk, and how to locate deer, and these things. We talk about everything from mountain public land whitetails to how to rap Vanilla Ice songs. We do a little bit of everything. So
did you write a song for this? You don't have a song ready for it?
I didn't. I wasn't sure how that would roll out, but I thought about making one, Guy, just for you, and I didn't do it. Didn't do it this time.
They are the most atrocious things I've ever heard in my life, but hot damn if I gotta listen to them a couple times without laughing to hear everything he says.
I could send you the raw cut version, buddy. Don't you worry.
Don't worry about that. I heard that voice.
The CD dropping?
I like the hard limiter as it's coming through my speakers.
So my rap debut, as far as Guy is concerned, it didn't go too well.
I thought it was awesome, man. I was there. I was with you. We were.
Now we do a lot of we try to stick to the humorous side of things on my show, but there's also a lot of serious stuff, but we don't get too serious, and that's okay. So you can find us on Instagram at the Western Huntsman, and the Western Huntsman is not like my nickname. It's just it's a brand where we all, those of us that hunt the West, we can go and we can communicate and talk about things like conservation and wildlife management and things along those nature or along that line. I sure appreciate you having me on. And if you guys want to learn how to hunt elk, I learned to hunt elk through the Elk Bros and the Elk Calling Academy with these two guys on there. They may be old, but they know what they're talking about, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I knew that. That's how I read sooner or later about the age thing.
Well, look, I'll throw another plug out there. If you have not gone and listened on Western Contours to the Wapiti Wednesdays that Michael had done back there, you've missed out on a lot of incredible content too. So check those out.
So, gentlemen, there's a reason I asked all of you. I have an admiration and respect for how you guys present hunting, not just to our community, but to the world, right? And I absolutely appreciate each and every one of you and your platforms. Thank you for the time tonight. From the bottom of my heart, I really do appreciate it. Respect the hell out of all you gentlemen. I'll let you get back to your families. We're almost 3 hours deep. I can keep going, but thank you guys. It's been a good time, and I think the message came through loud and clear.
Thank you, Guy.
All right, boys. You guys have a great one. We'll see you.
You too. Have a great evening, everybody.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys.
Thank you for listening. Follow Western Contours on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and sign up at westerncontours.com. Episodes are available on most major platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe, leave us a comment, and don't forget to hit that 5-star rating. We appreciate the support, and until next time, lay 'em down.